Medics don't engage! Stay down! The command split the air like a whip crack. Dust, blood, chaos. But then, the quiet woman they'd dismissed for weeks dropped her medical bag. Her fingers wrapped around a rifle lying in the dirt. One shot. Clean. Lethal. Then another. And another. 3 insurgents fell before anyone realized what was happening. The SEAL team froze. This wasn't possible. She was just a medic. Small. Silent. Harmless. Until she wasn't. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Lena Vance had a past sealed in classified files. A ghost name whispered in dark corners of military intelligence. And in the hell of Blackthorn Valley, that past was about to surface. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this story, drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far these tales travel. Stay until the end. You won't believe where this goes. The heat in Blackthorn Valley didn't just burn, it suffocated. Lena Vance felt it press against her skin as she adjusted the straps of her medical pack, sweat pooling beneath the Kevlar vest that never quite fit right. The valley stretched before them like a wound carved into the earth. Jagged ridges, crumbling stone, and shadows that seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. She kept her head down as the convoy rolled to a stop. Around her, the SEAL team moved with practiced efficiency. Boots hit dirt. Weapons came up. Eyes scanned. These men were operators, elite, sharp, every movement a study in controlled aggression. And then there was Lena, 5'4", 120 pounds soaking wet. Medical Corps insignia on her shoulder that might as well have been a sign that read liability. "Vance, stay close to the vehicles," Sergeant Cade Merrick called out. His voice carried that particular edge she'd heard 100 times before. Not quite contempt, but close. Dismissal wrapped in procedure. "Copy," she said quietly. She didn't argue. Never did. Merrick was textbook, mid-30s, Georgia drawl, the kind of NCO who'd earned his stripes the hard way and never let anyone forget it. He'd made it clear from day one that he hadn't asked for a female medic attached to his unit. Command had insisted. So here she was, dead weight in his eyes. The rest of the team wasn't much better. There was Corporal Danny Chen, baby-faced, loud, always trying to prove something. Private First Class Marcus Webb, quiet but cold, the kind of guy who measured people and found most wanting. Staff Sergeant Kyle Raines, the oldest of the bunch, scarred and cynical, who looked at Lena like she was a ticking clock counting down to disaster. And then Lieutenant Garrett Hayes, officer, Princeton grad, trying too hard to be one of the guys while simultaneously keeping enough distance to maintain authority. He'd been polite to Lena, almost courteous, which somehow felt worse than Merrick's open disdain. "Intel says the village is clear," Hayes announced, checking his tablet. "No hostile activity in 72 hours. We're here to verify, document, and extract if we find anything useful." "Sounds like a milk run," Chen said, grinning. "Milk runs get you killed," Raines muttered. Lena adjusted her pack and followed at a distance as they moved out. The village, what was left of it, sat at the base of the valley like a collection of broken teeth. Mud brick structures, most of them collapsed. Burned-out vehicles. The kind of place that had seen fighting and lost. They moved in formation, professional and tight. Lena stayed back, watching their 6, keeping her breathing steady despite the weight of the pack and the climb. She'd learned early on not to complain about the physical demands. The first week, she'd kept pace with them on a 12-mile ruck. Merrick had barely acknowledged it. The second week, she'd beaten Chen's time by 4 minutes. That had earned her a grunt and suspicious looks. You couldn't win with these men. Too weak, and you were dead weight. Too strong, and you were something else. Something that didn't fit their mental boxes. So Lena had learned to be invisible. The ruins opened up before them. Hayes signaled a halt. "Webb, Chen, clear those structures. Raines, overwatch on that ridge. Merrick, with me. Vance, stay with the gear," Merrick finished. Lena nodded and took a knee beside a crumbling wall, using the opportunity to inventory her supplies. Tourniquets. Hemostatic gauze. Morphine. Chest seals. The familiar ritual calmed her. She could hear Chen joking over the comms as he and Webb moved through the buildings. Radio chatter, the crunch of boots on debris. Normal sounds for abnormal work. Then, a crack split the air. Not thunder. Not a vehicle backfiring, a rifle shot. Contact! Webb's voice, sharp and high. Contact north! The world exploded. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions simultaneously: the ridgeline, the western buildings, the rocky outcrop to the east. The ambush was textbook perfect. Pre-sighted firing positions, overlapping fields of fire, no escape routes. Someone had been waiting for them. Get down! Get down! Merrick's voice barely cut through the chaos. Lena was already moving, not away, toward. She sprinted low across open ground as bullets chewed up the earth around her, reaching Chen, who'd gone down in the first volley. Chen! She slid into cover beside him. His leg was torn open, blood pumping dark and fast. Femoral artery. He had minutes. Shit! I'm hit! I know, stay still. Her hands moved with mechanical precision. Tourniquet above the wound. Twist. Lock. The bleeding slowed. More gunfire. An explosion somewhere close, probably an RPG. Dust and smoke rolled over them. Vance, fall back! Hayes screaming over the radio. Medical personnel, fall back to secondary position. She ignored him. Webb was 20 meters away, pinned behind an overturned cart. She could see blood on his shoulder. Webb, how bad? She called. Through and through, I'm good. He wasn't good. She could tell by the way he was holding that arm. But he could move, and movement meant survival. Rains, where are you? Hayes again, voice tight. Ridge is compromised. I'm coming down. Another explosion. Closer this time. The shockwave rattled Lena's teeth. Chen grabbed her arm, eyes wide. We're gonna die here. Not today. She finished securing the tourniquet and checked his pupils. Shock setting in, but manageable. Can you move? Yeah. Then move. That building, 10 o'clock. Go. She helped him up, half carrying him across the gap, while gunfire tracked their movement. Something hot buzzed past her ear. Too close. But they made it. Barely. Inside the building, 3 more were already sheltering. Merrick, Hayes, and a communications specialist named Park, who looked about 16 and terrified. How many hostiles? Hayes demanded. At least 20, Merrick said. Could be more. They've got the high ground and better position. We're fucked. Air support? 15 minutes out, if we're lucky. 15 minutes might as well be 15 hours. Lena was already working on Chen, starting an IV line, administering morphine. Her hands were steady even as the building shook from another near miss. Where's Rains and Webb? She asked. Webb's pinned in the eastern sector, Park said, voice shaking. Rains is, I don't know, lost comms. Hayes looked at Merrick. Options? We hold until air support arrives or we die trying. There's no third choice. There's always a third choice, Lena said quietly. They all turned to look at her. Excuse me? Merrick's voice dropped to something dangerous. Lena didn't look up from Chen's IV line. The attack came from 3 positions: North Ridge, West Buildings, East Outcrop. That's not random. They're forcing us into a kill box in the center. We know that, Hayes said, but they're overextended. Now she did look up. Her eyes moved between them, calm and clear. 20 fighters spread across 3 positions means maybe 6 or 7 per position. They're trying to pin us, not overrun us, which means they don't have the numbers for a direct assault. Silence. How the hell would you know that? Merrick asked. Lena returned her attention to Chen. I pay attention. Vance, if we shift position to the southern buildings, she continued, we collapse their firing triangle, force them to reposition. Buy time. Hayes studied her. That's actually not a bad tactical read. She's a medic, Merrick said flatly, not a strategist. She's also right, Hayes said. He keyed his radio. All units, prepare to move on my mark. Southern structures, leapfrog formation. The next 5 minutes were hell. They moved in pairs, covering each other, dragging Chen between positions while gunfire pursued them like a living thing. Lena stayed with the wounded, but her eyes never stopped moving, tracking fire patterns, noting reload times, watching the way shadows shifted on the ridgeline. Things other medics didn't watch, things they had no reason to watch. They made it to the southern building, an old market structure with thick walls and a partial roof. Better cover. Hayes had been right to trust her assessment, but the fighting intensified. An RPG struck the eastern wall, blowing a hole the size of a man through the stone. Debris rained down. Someone was screaming, "Park!" clutching his arm where shrapnel had torn through. "I got him!" Lena moved immediately, assessing the damage. Bad, but not critical. She worked quickly, bandaging, stabilizing. Rains appeared in the doorway, covered in dust and blood. "Rains!" Hayes waved him in. "Status?" "Webb's down. Took another hit trying to reposition. He's alive, but he can't move on his own." "Can you get to him?" "Not without getting shredded." Merrick slammed his fist against the wall. "God damn it!" Lena stood. "Where is he?" "Northwest corner behind the burned-out truck," Rains said. "But it's a death run, completely exposed." She was already moving toward the door. "Vance, stop!" Hayes grabbed her shoulder. "That's suicide." "He'll bleed out." "He's probably already He's not." She pulled free, her voice quiet but absolute. "I can hear him on the radio. He's calling for help. I'm going." "The hell you are." Merrick stepped in front of her. "You're a non-combatant. You don't make tactical decisions." For the first time since the shooting started, Lena met his eyes directly. There was something in her gaze that made him step back. Not fear, not anger. Something older, colder. "I'm a medic," she said softly. "My job is to keep people alive. Get out of my way." Hayes hesitated, then nodded. "Rains, give her covering fire." "Sir, this is insane." "Do it!" Lena checked her pack one more time, then took a breath. The sounds of the battle seemed to fade for just a moment. She could feel her heartbeat, slow and steady, could feel the weight of the Kevlar, the placement of every piece of equipment, could feel muscle memory she'd tried to bury clawing its way back to the surface. "On three," Rains said, positioning himself by the window. "One, two." She didn't wait for three. Lena exploded through the doorway in a dead sprint. Gunfire erupted immediately, tracking her movement. She juked left, then right. Not panicked, but deliberate, reading the angles. The rounds hit where she'd been, not where she was going. 20 meters. Something spanged off her helmet, too close. 15 meters. Her lungs burned, but her breathing stayed controlled. Tactical breathing. 4 counts in. 4 counts hold. 4 counts out. 10 meters. The truck appeared ahead, riddled with bullet holes and scorched black. She could see Webb's boots protruding from behind it. 5 meters. Almost. Her foot hit something wrong. A divot in the ground, hidden by dust. Lena went down hard, sliding across dirt and gravel. Her medical pack flew off, tumbling across the ground. For a moment, she was completely exposed. Gunfire intensified, kicking up dirt inches from her face. She couldn't move forward, couldn't stay here. And then she saw it. Lying in the dust, 3 feet away. An M4 rifle. Probably Webb's, dropped when he'd taken his second hit. Lena's hand moved toward it before her conscious mind had decided. Her fingers wrapped around the familiar weight, the texture of the grip, the balance. Muscle memory flooded back like a dam breaking. She'd promised herself she'd never hold one of these again. That was before Blackthorn Valley. Lena rolled to a firing position, bringing the rifle up in one smooth motion. Her cheek found the stock. Her eye found the sight picture. Her breathing settled into the space between heartbeats. The world narrowed to vectors and angles. First target, North Ridge. Muzzle flash from behind a rock formation. Range approximately 200 meters. Wind negligible. Elevation minimal. She exhaled halfway and squeezed. The rifle cracked. On the ridgeline, a figure jerked and fell. Second target, western building, second floor window. Machine gun position. Range 180. Partial cover. Adjust. Breathe. Fire. The machine gun went silent. Third target, eastern outcrop, RPG team preparing another shot. Range 220. Moving target. Lead the movement. Lead the timing. Wait for it. Now. The RPG operator dropped. His weapon clattered down the rocks. 3 shots. 3 seconds. 3 kills. The battlefield went quiet. Not actually quiet. Gunfire still echoed, radios still crackled, but a different kind of silence. The silence of disbelief. Behind the truck, Webb stared at her with eyes like dinner plates. What the fuck? Lena didn't answer. She was already moving again, combat crawling to his position, dragging the rifle with her. You're hit in the shoulder and the leg, she said, her voice returning to the calm, clinical tone they knew. I'm going to stabilize you. Who? What are you? Your medic. Hold still. She worked quickly, applying pressure dressings while keeping the rifle within reach. Her eyes continued to scan the battlefield, marking positions, threats, opportunities. The enemy was reorganizing. She could see it in their movement patterns. They'd pulled back after losing 3 positions, but they weren't retreating, regrouping. Can you move? She asked Webb. Not really. Then we wait for cover. She keyed her radio. Hayes, I've got Webb. He's stable but non-ambulatory. Needs suppressing fire to extract. Copy that. Stand by. 10 seconds later, Merrick and Rains opened up from the southern building. Sustained fire, forcing the enemy to keep their heads down. Go! Hayes' voice crackled. Lena slung the rifle across her back, grabbed Webb under the arms, and started dragging. He outweighed her by at least 80 pounds, but she'd trained for this. Used her legs, kept low, maintained momentum. Bullets tracked them. Close. Too close. She was 15 meters from safety when she heard the distinctive thump of a mortar launch. Time seemed to slow. She looked up, calculated the trajectory in a fraction of a second. It was going to land directly on the southern building, where Hayes, Merrick, Rains, Chen, and Park were sheltering. Incoming! She screamed. North wall! She didn't see if they moved. She was already throwing herself over Webb, shielding him with her body as the world turned white and loud. The explosion lifted them both off the ground. Lena hit hard, tasting blood and dust. Her ears rang. Everything hurt. But she was moving. Still moving. Webb groaned beneath her. Alive. Stay down, she muttered, rolling off him. The southern building was half collapsed. Smoke poured from the interior. No, 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 no. Lena forced herself up, stumbling toward the wreckage. Her vision swam, but she kept moving. Hayes! Merrick! A cough from inside. Then Rains emerged, supporting Hayes. Both covered in white dust, bleeding from a dozen small cuts, but mobile. Chen and Park are trapped, Rains gasped. The roof came down on the back half. Merrick? With them. He's trying to dig them out. Lena pushed past him into the smoky interior. The structure was unstable, creaking ominously with every movement. In the back corner, she could see Merrick frantically pulling at chunks of concrete. Merrick! He looked up, face streaked with blood and tears. I can hear them. They're alive, but I can't. The concrete's too heavy. More gunfire outside. The enemy was pressing the advantage, moving in now that their position was compromised. They had maybe 2 minutes. Lena assessed the situation with cold clarity. The roof collapse had created a pocket where Chen and Park were trapped, but the angle was wrong. The main support beam was holding most of the weight, but it was cracked. One wrong move and the whole thing would come down. Stop pulling, she said. You'll bring the rest down on them. We have to be smart. She moved closer, examining the rubble. Rains, get back outside. Hold that door. Hayes, I need you on this section here. Merrick, the beam needs support before we shift anything. Since when do you give orders? Merrick snarled. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Since right now. We're running out of time, and I'm the only one who can see the solution. So you can either help or get out of my way. Something in her voice, the absolute certainty, made him nod. They worked in coordinated silence. Lena directed every movement, every shift of weight. She'd studied structural engineering in another life, another identity. 3 minutes later, they pulled Chen free. Then Park. Both alive, both breathing. Move, Lena ordered. Building's compromised. They evacuated just as the rest of the roof gave way with a thunderous crash. Outside, Rains was laying down suppressing fire, but the enemy was getting closer. Air support? Hayes gasped. Still 5 minutes out. They weren't going to last 5 minutes. Lena looked around the battlefield, 5 wounded men depending on her. Enemy forces closing from 3 sides. No escape route, no miracle coming, just her. And a rifle she'd sworn never to use again. She picked it up. The weight felt right, felt natural, felt like coming home to a house on fire. Vance? Hayes was looking at her strangely. Get everyone to that depression, 20 meters south, she said quietly. The shallow crater from the first RPG. It'll give you cover from two sides. What about you? I'm going to buy you time. That's not your medical corps. She turned to face him fully. The dust had settled on her face like a second skin. Her eyes were clear and calm and absolutely terrifying in their focus. Lieutenant Hayes, she said softly. Right now, I'm whatever I need to be to keep my people alive. Now move them. That's not a suggestion. He moved them. Lena waited until they were in position, then she took a breath and stepped into the open. The M4 came up smooth and natural. She'd spent 5 years trying to forget this feeling, the way the world simplified when you looked through the sight, the way time stretched and compressed, the way all the noise fell away until there was only the math of trajectory and breath and trigger pull. First target, squad leader on the North Ridge, directing the others. He was good, staying mobile, using cover effectively. Not good enough. She led his movement by half a body width. Fire. He dropped. The enemy squad faltered, confused. Their leader was down. Second target, machine gun team setting up on the western approach. They were focused on the crater where her team was hiding. Range 190, slight upward angle. 2 targets. Fire. Shift. Fire. Both down. The machine gun position went quiet. Now the enemy knew something was wrong. Fire shifted toward her position, but she was already moving, relocating before they could acquire her properly. This was the dance she remembered, the terrible, necessary dance. Third target, RPG team. They'd learned from last time, staying mobile, preparing to fire on the move. Harder shot, much harder. Lena settled her breathing, let her heartbeat slow, waited for that perfect moment between breaths where everything aligned. The RPG operator stopped for just a fraction of a second, adjusting his aim. That was enough. Fire. He went down. The RPG clattered harmlessly down the hillside. She'd fired 6 shots, 6 were down. The enemy attack stalled completely. From the crater, she heard Merrick's voice, raw with disbelief. What the fuck is happening? She's happening, Webb said quietly. Whatever the hell she is. Lena repositioned again, finding new cover. Her body moved on pure instinct now, muscle memory from thousands of hours of training she'd tried to forget. The enemy regrouped, but they were cautious now. They'd lost too many too quickly to someone they couldn't locate properly. She used their hesitation, controlled the tempo, took shots only when they presented themselves, made each round count. 7, 8, 9. The battlefield belonged to her now. And then she heard it, the beautiful, terrible sound of rotors in the distance. Air support. The helicopters came in fast and loud, door guns opening up on the enemy positions. Within 30 seconds, the ambush had turned into a retreat. The hostiles scattered into the ridgelines like smoke. It was over. Lena lowered the rifle. Her hands were shaking now. Delayed reaction, adrenaline crash. She'd kept it together during the fight, but now, she dropped the weapon like it was poisonous and stumbled toward the crater. Her team was alive. All of them. Wounded, traumatized, but alive. Hayes was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Because he hadn't. None of them had. Vance, he said slowly, what just happened? We survived, she said quietly. That's not... You're a medic. You don't... Those shots were... He couldn't seem to finish a sentence. Merrick stepped forward. His expression was unreadable. Who are you? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Lena looked down at her hands. They were covered in blood, some hers, some theirs. The same hands that had set IVs and applied tourniquets had just taken 9 lives. She'd spent 3 years running from what she'd been. 3 years choosing to heal instead of harm. 3 years trying to prove that people could change, that past didn't have to define future. And in one afternoon, all of that had crumbled. Not because she'd failed, because she'd succeeded. My name, she said slowly, is Lena Vance. I'm a medic attached to this unit. That's all you need to know. Bullshit. Merrick's voice was hard. I've seen operators, real operators, who couldn't make those shots. You dropped 9 hostiles in under 3 minutes with precision I've never seen outside of... He stopped. His eyes widened slightly. No, no way. Merrick. The shots. The tactical assessment. The way you moved. He was putting pieces together, his expression shifting from disbelief to something like awe. I've only seen that kind of profile once, in classified briefings about. Drop it, Lena said sharply. There was a unit, Merrick continued, speaking slowly. Black Ops? Beyond Black. They didn't exist officially. Specialized in impossible shots, precision elimination, zero-footprint operations, but they were disbanded 4 years ago after. He stopped again, staring at her. After their last mission went wrong. Everyone thought the team was KIA. The silence stretched. Merrick, Hayes said quietly. Stand down. She's one of them, Merrick said. She's fucking Wraith Protocol. The name hit like a physical blow. Lena closed her eyes. Wraith Protocol. A designation she'd buried, a past she'd cremated and scattered, an identity she'd sworn was dead. But here, in the dust and blood of Blackthorn Valley, it had clawed its way out of the grave. Chen spoke up, his voice weak but awed. Wait, Wraith Protocol? Like the ghost snipers? The ones from the Kandahar extraction? The Seoul Embassy rescue? Those are legends. They can't be real. They're real, Rain said quietly. I saw the classified footage once. 3-man team, longest confirmed kills on record, 0 failures, ghosts. He looked at Lena with new eyes. Until Damascus. Damascus. The word tasted like ash. Lena opened her eyes. We don't talk about Damascus. Your whole team died in Damascus, Rain said. That's what the report said. Except, he gestured at her. You're here. I'm here, she repeated flatly. Because you ran? Merrick asked. Because I survived. Her voice was ice. There's a difference. The helicopters were landing now, medics rushing out with stretchers. The real cavalry had arrived, but Lena didn't move. She stood in the center of the battlefield, surrounded by men who'd dismissed her hours ago and now looked at her like she was something dangerous, something other. Hayes approached carefully, like you might approach a wild animal. Vance, Lena, we need to debrief this. Command is going to have questions. Let them ask. You saved us, all of us, but that kind of performance, it's going to raise flags. You understand that? I understand that I did my job. Your job as a medic? Merrick asked pointedly. She met his eyes. My job as whatever I needed to be to keep you alive. Fresh medics were loading Chen and Park onto stretchers. Webb was being treated by the helicopter corpsmen. The professional rescue operation swirled around them, but in this small circle, the world had shifted irrevocably. When we get back to base, Hayes said carefully, people are going to want answers. Then they'll be disappointed. Vance. I'm Lena Vance, Medical Corps, attached personnel. That's what my papers say. That's what my service record says. Anything else is speculation. Her voice was quiet but absolute. Are we clear? Hayes looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded. The helicopter ride back was silent. Lena sat in the back, still covered in dust and blood, watching the valley recede below them. Blackthorn Valley, where she'd tried to be someone new and ended up becoming someone old. The men kept glancing at her, not hostile, not even suspicious anymore, afraid, because they'd seen what she could do, what she could become when pushed, and that scared them more than any enemy ever could. As they approached base, Chen, high on morphine and blood loss, suddenly laughed, a slightly manic sound. What? Webb asked. We've been giving her shit for weeks, Chen said, calling her dead weight, saying she couldn't keep up. He laughed again. And she's been what? Pretending to be normal? Playing medic while she could do that? She wasn't pretending, Hayes said quietly. She is a medic. That's what she chose to be. After being a ghost, Rains added. Maybe she got tired of haunting, Webb said. Lena didn't contribute to the conversation. She stared out the window and thought about Damascus. Thought about her team, Marcus, Yuki, and Cairo. 3 of the best operators in the world. Gone in 12 seconds because intel was wrong and extraction was late, and politics valued deniability over lives. She'd survived by being better, faster, more ruthless than anyone else in that room. And she'd hated every second of it. That's why she'd buried Wraith Protocol. That's why she'd requested transfer to Medical Corps, taken the demotion, accepted the dismissal in doubt. Because healing was redemption. Because maybe if she saved enough lives, she could balance the scales. But Blackthorn Valley had proven what she'd always feared. You couldn't outrun what you were. You could only choose when to let it show. The base appeared ahead, rows of temporary structures, helipads, the controlled chaos of a forward operating base. As they landed, Lena could see a cluster of officers waiting. Word had already spread. The medic who fought like a ghost. The mystery with a rifle. The woman who'd saved an entire SEAL team and killed 9 hostiles in the process. This was going to complicate everything. Hayes touched her shoulder as they prepared to disembark. For what it's worth, thank you. You saved my men. Our men, she corrected quietly. Right. Our men. He paused. Are you going to be okay? Lena looked at him. Really looked at him. This lieutenant who'd tried to be kind, who'd trusted her tactical assessment when it mattered, who'd given the order that let her do what she did best. I don't know, she admitted. Ask me tomorrow. They stepped off the helicopter into a wall of questions, debriefings, medical checks, and the weight of revelation. But as Lena walked across the tarmac, blood-stained and exhausted, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Not pride, not satisfaction, just clarity. She'd spent so long trying to be someone else that she'd forgotten a simple truth. You don't get to choose between who you were and who you are. You only get to choose what you do with both. And Lena Vance, medic, ghost, survivor, was just beginning to figure out what that meant. The base hospital smelled like antiseptic and regret. Lena sat in a private room, not quite under arrest, but definitely under observation, while a doctor she didn't know checked her vitals. She'd refused sedation, needed to stay sharp. Through the window, she could see Merrick and Hayes in heated discussion with a colonel she recognized from briefings, probably arguing about protocol, classification, what to put in the report, what to do about her. A knock on the door. Come in. A woman entered, mid-40s, civilian clothes, ID badge that said Department of Defense, but nothing more specific. She had the look of someone who dealt in secrets professionally. Ms. Vance, or should I say Lieutenant Vance, or perhaps Wraith 3? Lena didn't respond. The woman smiled thinly. I'm here to discuss your future. I have a future? That depends entirely on this conversation. She sat down across from Lena, crossing her legs, utterly comfortable despite the circumstances. Wraith Protocol was decommissioned, she said. Officially, everyone died in Damascus. You were granted a new identity, Medical Corps assignment, a chance to disappear into a normal career. I was buried alive, Lena said flatly. You were protected. There were people who wanted answers about Damascus, people who don't accept failure. Letting you die kept you safe. Until today. Until today, the woman agreed. Now 9 hostile combatants are dead by impossibly precise rifle fire, and a SEAL team is telling anyone who'll listen about a miracle medic who fights like a legend. She leaned forward. That kind of story spreads, Ms. Vance. And when it spreads, people start asking questions, connecting dots, remembering Damascus. What do you want? The same thing you want to make this go away. Lena laughed bitterly. You can't make this go away. There were witnesses, body cam footage, radio chatter. Half the base knows. We can classify it, seal the records. Convince your team that discretion serves everyone's interests. The woman's smile was sharp. We're very good at making inconvenient truths disappear. In exchange for? You go back to being Lena Vance, medic. You never speak of Wraith Protocol. You never access those skills again. She paused. You bury the ghost permanently. And if I refuse? Then you become a problem, and problems get solved. The threat was delivered with bureaucratic politeness, which somehow made it worse. Lena looked at her hands again, still stained with blood that wouldn't wash off until she got to a proper sink. I didn't want this, she said quietly. I know. I just wanted to save lives. You did. 9 deaths bought 5 lives. That's a hell of an exchange rate in this business. It's not a business, Lena snapped. They're people. And you kept your people alive using skills you've spent 3 years pretending not to have. The woman stood. I'll give you an hour to think about it. But Lena, the offer expires. Choose wisely. She left. Lena sat alone in the antiseptic room and wondered what choice she'd really been given. Bury the past or become it entirely. Heal or harm. Be Lena Vance or be Wraith 3. Outside, the sun was setting over Blackthorn Valley, the place where everything had changed. Or maybe she thought nothing had changed at all. Maybe she'd always been both. Maybe the question wasn't which one to be, but how to live with being both. The door opened again. This time it was Merrick. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression complicated. They're going to classify this, he said. Seal everything. Pretend it didn't happen. I know. And you're okay with that? Lena met his eyes. Are you? He was quiet for a long moment. You saved my life today, Chen's life, all of us. I don't care what your file says or what unit you belong to or what secrets you're carrying. He stepped into the room. I care that you were there when it mattered. I'm still a medic, Merrick. Yeah. He smiled slightly. You're also a hell of a lot more than that. And maybe that's okay. He offered his hand. Lena looked at it for a moment, then shook it. We good? Merrick asked. We're good. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're on our side. Me too. When he was gone, Lena leaned back against the bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd make her choice. Tonight, she'd just exist. Somewhere between the ghost and the medic. Somewhere between the past and the future. Somewhere in the blood-stained middle where real people lived real lives and made impossible choices. And she'd be okay with that. Maybe. The helicopters outside were still coming and going, bringing in wounded, evacuating critical cases, the endless churn of war. Lena listened to the rhythm of it, the familiar sounds of her chosen profession. But now, layered underneath, she could hear something else. The echo of rifle shots, the ghost of who she'd been. And for the first time in 3 years, she didn't try to make it go away. She just let it be. Part of her. Always. Them. End of part 1. The hour passed in silence, broken only by the rhythmic beep of medical equipment and distant rotor wash. Lena sat motionless, her mind running calculations that had nothing to do with medicine. Risk assessment, probability matrices, the math of survival in a world that dealt in secrets and silence. The woman from the Department of Defense returned exactly 60 minutes later. Punctual, professional, predictable. Have you made your decision? Lena stood slowly, feeling every bruise and strain from the day's events. I have conditions. The woman's eyebrow arched. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then you're not in a position to make this disappear. Lena's voice was calm, measured. Because if you bury this completely, the men in that valley will talk. They'll ask questions, push back. But if you let me stay, if you let me keep being exactly who I've been for 3 years, they'll move on. Stories fade. Legends become rumors. Rumors become nothing. A long pause. What are your conditions? I stay with Medical Corps. Same assignment, same unit. Lena held the woman's gaze. And you leave my team alone. No interviews, no pressure, no mysterious reassignments that make them wonder what you're hiding. That's it? That's everything. The woman studied her with the clinical detachment of someone who'd spent years reading people for a living. You really just want to be a medic. Yes. After what you did today? After proving you're still one of the best tactical operators alive? She shook her head slightly. Most people would leverage that. Demand better assignments, higher pay, recognition. I'm not most people. No, you're really not. The woman pulled out a tablet, typed something. Done. You remain Lena Vance, Medical Corps. The incident at Blackthorn Valley is classified under operational security protocols. Your team receives commendations for bravery under fire. The 9 hostiles are credited to air support. She looked up. But understand this. You use those skills again, You surface in any classified database. You become visible. This deal evaporates. Clear? Crystal. Good. The woman stood. For what it's worth, Ms. Vance, I think you're making a mistake. The world needs people like you doing what you do best. The world has enough ghosts, Lena said quietly. After she left, Lena was cleared by medical and released back to barracks. It was nearly midnight. The base had settled into its nocturnal rhythm. Guards at checkpoints, mechanics working late shifts, the ever-present generator hum. She walked across the compound alone, favoring her left leg slightly. Nothing serious, just bruising from the impact when she'd hit the ground. The barracks were dark and quiet when she entered. Her bunk was in the medical wing, separate from the main SEAL quarters, but close enough to respond to emergencies. She showered in cold water, watching blood and dust spiral down the drain, wondering how many more times she'd wash away evidence of violence and pretend it never happened. When she emerged, someone was waiting. Webb sat on the bench outside the showers, his shoulder properly bandaged now, arm in a sling. "You should be in medical," Lena said. "So should you." He gestured at the purple bruising visible on her arms. "But here we are." She sat down next to him, suddenly exhausted. They didn't speak for a while, just sat in the quiet darkness, two people who'd survived something that should have killed them. "I wanted to say thank you," Webb finally said, "for coming back for me, for the whole death run thing. It's my job." "Bullshit." He turned to look at her. "Your job was to stay safe and treat wounded. Running through a kill zone to drag my ass out? That was something else." Lena didn't respond. "The thing is," Webb continued, "I've been military for 8 years, seen a lot of combat, a lot of operators, and I've never seen anyone move like you did today." He paused. "The way you analyzed the ambush, the way you directed the extraction. And then those shots?" He shook his head. "That wasn't luck. That was skill at a level I didn't know existed outside of classified briefings." "Webb, I'm not asking for your story," he said quickly. "Whatever you were before, whatever you're running from, that's your business. I just want you to know that whatever happens, however command decides to handle this, I've got your back." The simple statement hit harder than expected. "Why?" Lena asked. "Because you had mine when it counted." He stood carefully, adjusting his sling. "That's all that matters to me." He left her sitting in the darkness. Lena remained there for another 20 minutes, thinking about loyalty and secrets, and the strange mathematics of trust earned under fire. Finally, she went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. Morning formation was tense. The entire base knew something had happened at Blackthorn Valley. The official report called it a successful rescue operation with air support neutralizing hostile forces. But rumors spread faster than official statements, and rumors had teeth. Lena stood in ranks with the other medical personnel, eyes forward, expression neutral. She could feel the stares from across the formation. The SEAL teams, the Rangers, even the support staff. The quiet medic who'd done something impossible. Colonel Marks, base commander, career officer, perpetually exhausted, addressed the formation with practiced efficiency. Commendations for bravery. Recognition of successful operations. The usual military theater. He didn't mention Blackthorn Valley specifically, but when his eyes passed over Lena, they lingered for just a fraction of a second. Message received, "We're watching you." After formation, Lena returned to medical. There was work to do. Inventory, supply checks, routine physicals for incoming personnel, the mundane machinery of military medicine. She threw herself into it gratefully. Dr. Sarah Kwan found her 2 hours later, reorganizing the pharmaceutical storage for the 3rd time. "Vance, my office." Kwan was chief medical officer, early 40s, Korean-American, brilliant diagnostician with 0 patience for bullshit. She'd been the one who'd approved Lena's transfer to this unit 3 months ago. Her office was small but meticulously organized, medical journals stacked precisely, diplomas aligned perfectly, a space that demanded order from chaos. "Close the door." Lena did. "I read the after-action report from Blackthorn Valley," Kwan said without preamble. "The official one and the unofficial one that's circulating among people with clearance." She leaned back in her chair. "They don't match." Reports rarely do. Don't be glib with me, Vance, Kwan's voice sharpened. The official report says you performed emergency triage under fire and assisted with casualty evacuation. Standard combat medic work. Exemplary, but not unusual. That's accurate. The unofficial report says you killed 9 hostiles with 9 shots, directed tactical operations, and saved an entire SEAL team from annihilation using skills far beyond medical training. Kwan's eyes were hard. Care to explain the discrepancy? Lena kept her expression neutral. The unofficial report is speculation. Is it? Yes, ma'am. Kwan studied her for a long moment. I approved your transfer because your record was impeccable. Top of your class in advanced trauma care. Exemplary field evaluations. Strong recommendations. She paused. But your record only goes back 3 years. Before that, nothing. Like you didn't exist. I existed, just not in military medicine. Where then? Private sector medical work. Overseas. Which company? I'd have to check my files. Lena, Kwan's voice dropped the rank formality. I'm trying to help you here, but I can't protect someone I don't understand, and right now I don't understand you at all. The admission was surprising, honest. Lena made a decision. What do you want to know? The truth. The truth is classified above your pay grade and mine. Lena met her eyes directly. But what I can tell you is this. I'm a good medic. I care about my patients. I follow protocols. And yesterday, I did what was necessary to keep people alive. That's all. By shooting 9 people. By doing what was necessary, Lena repeated. Kwan was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to continue your duties exactly as before. Same schedule, same responsibilities. But you're also going to attend mandatory counseling sessions with the base psychologist. It's not optional. Combat exposure requires psychological evaluation. That's protocol. Kwan's expression softened slightly. And between you and me, talking to someone might help. Whatever you're carrying, Vance, it's heavy. I can see it. Lena wanted to argue, but Kwan was right, and they both knew it. When do the sessions start? Tomorrow, 800, Dr. Martinez. He's good. Former combat medic himself. Kwan stood, signaling the end of the meeting. And Vance, for what it's worth, I'm glad you were there yesterday. Whatever your background, whatever skills you used, you saved lives. That's what matters. Lena left the office feeling strangely lighter. The rest of the day passed in routine, treating minor injuries, updating medical records, teaching a class on tourniquet application to new arrivals. Normal, boring, exactly what she wanted. But normal didn't last. Around 1600 hours, Merrick appeared in medical. We need to talk. They walked to the perimeter of the base, an area near the western fence where the noise from generators masked conversation. Command is asking questions, Merrick said without preamble. They're being subtle about it, but they're digging, talking to everyone who was at Blackthorn Valley, trying to piece together what actually happened. Let them dig. Vance, you don't understand. These aren't regular officers. These are intelligence types, the kind who ask questions they already know the answers to, just to see if you'll lie. Then I won't lie. What will you tell them? That I did my job. She looked at him. What will you tell them? Merrick was quiet for a moment, staring out at the desert beyond the fence. The truth. That you saved our asses using skills I've never seen before. That you're either the luckiest medic alive or something else entirely. He turned to face her. But I'll also tell them that I trust you. That whatever you were before, you're one of us now. You don't know what I was before? I can guess. Wraith Protocol. Black Ops. The kind of shit that gets buried so deep even the people who ordered it forget it existed. He shrugged. But here's the thing. I don't care. You could be a foreign agent, a war criminal, a fucking alien for all I care. Yesterday you kept my men alive. That's enough for me. The simple loyalty was almost painful. Thank you, Lena said quietly. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. Merrick checked his watch. There's a debriefing at 1900 hours. Mandatory for everyone who was at Blackthorn Valley. Intelligence officers running it. I'll be there. Good. He started to leave, then paused. And Vance? Whatever happens in that room, remember that you don't owe them anything except the truth as you choose to tell it. The debriefing room was sterile and windowless, designed for classified conversations. Lena arrived exactly on time. The rest of the team was already there. Hayes, Merrick, Rains, Chen in a wheelchair, Webb, and Park. They all looked uncomfortable in the fluorescent lighting. 2 intelligence officers sat at the front, a man and woman, both in civilian clothes, both radiating the particular authority of people who answered to acronyms, not ranks. The man spoke first. "I'm Agent Carlson. This is Agent Reeves. We're here to conduct a formal debriefing of yesterday's incident at Blackthorn Valley." "We already filed reports," Hayes said. "We're aware. This is to clarify certain inconsistencies." Carlson opened a tablet. "Lieutenant Hayes, walk us through the engagement from your perspective." Hayes did. His account was professional, thorough, and carefully edited. He mentioned Lena's medical work, her tactical suggestions, her assistance with casualty evacuation. Nothing about the shooting, nothing about Wraith protocol. "And the hostile casualties?" Reeves asked. "Air support," Hayes said smoothly. "Helicopter gunships arrived and neutralized the ambush. According to the air support crews, they arrived after the hostile advance had already been broken. Their engagement was cleanup, not primary action." Silence. "The battlefield was chaotic," Hayes said. "I may have misremembered the exact timing." Carlson turned to Merrick. "Sergeant, your account mentions that Specialist Vance provided tactical analysis during the engagement. Can you elaborate?" "She pointed out that the ambush was overextended, suggested we reposition to collapse their firing triangle." Merrick's voice was flat, giving nothing away. "It was a good read. Probably saved our asses. Specialist Vance has no tactical training in her file. She's observant. Apparently." Reeves made a note. "What about the hostile casualties? Your position had line of sight to several of the bodies. Did you observe how they were killed?" "Rifle fire. Precision shots." "From air support?" Merrick met her eyes. "I was focused on not dying, ma'am. Didn't have time to conduct forensic analysis." The questioning continued for an hour. Each team member gave variations of the same story, careful truths wrapped in strategic omissions. They protected Lena without lying outright. It was beautiful in its coordination. Finally, Carlson turned to Lena. "Specialist Vance, you've been quiet." "I didn't have much to add, sir. My focus was medical treatment. According to multiple accounts, you ran through active fire to reach Private Webb. That's considerably beyond standard medical protocols. He needed help. You could have been killed. So could he." Reeves leaned forward. "Let's talk about your background, Specialist. Your service record shows you joined Medical Corps 3 years ago. Before that, nothing. No civilian employment, no education records beyond a high school diploma. It's like you didn't exist." "I existed, just not in systems you have access to." "What does that mean?" Lena chose her words carefully. "It means my previous employment was in sectors that maintain their own records independently. Private security, contract work, nothing illegal. Just separate." "Can you provide documentation?" "The companies I worked for no longer exist. Acquisitions, mergers, records lost in transitions." It wasn't entirely a lie. Wraith Protocol's cover companies had been dissolved after Damascus. "Convenient. Common, actually. The private sector churns constantly." Carlson pulled up something on his tablet. "Specialist Vance, have you ever received training in precision marksmanship?" "I qualified expert with standard service weapons." "That's not what I asked." "Then no, sir. No specialized training." The lie tasted familiar, necessary. "Have you ever been part of a classified military unit?" "No, sir." "Have you ever operated under an identity other than Lena Vance?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Hayes started to object. "Agent Carlson, I don't see how—" "Answer the question, Specialist." Lena looked at Carlson directly, saw the test in his eyes. He knew, or suspected. This was about seeing if she'd break. "Everyone operates under different identities," she said calmly. "Daughter, soldier, medic. We're all wearing masks depending on context. If you're asking whether I've ever used a different legal name, no. I was born Lena Marie Vance, and that's who I've always been. It was technically true. Wraith 3 had been a designation, not a name. Reeves and Carlson exchanged glances. That's all for now, Carlson said. We may have follow-up questions. You're all dismissed. The team filed out in silence. Once they were clear of the building, Hayes exhaled hard. That was a fishing expedition, Raines finished. They're looking for something specific. Looking for me, Lena said quietly. Then they didn't find you, Webb said firmly, because we all told them the same thing. You're our medic. Period. Chen wheeled himself closer. Are we going to have a problem? Like, are they going to keep digging until something breaks? Probably, Lena admitted. People like Carlson and Reeves don't give up easy. They'll keep pushing until they get answers or get told to stop. So what do? Park asked. We do our jobs, Merrick said. We train, we deploy, we trust each other, and we don't give them anything to grab onto. He looked at each of them in turn. We clear? Nods all around. Good. Dismissed. As the others dispersed, Hayes pulled Lena aside. This isn't sustainable, he said quietly. Sooner or later, someone's going to figure out who you really are. Maybe. And when they do, then I deal with it. She met his eyes. But until then, I'm just your medic, nothing more. You're a lot more than that. To you, to the team, but to command, to intelligence, I'm just a specialist with good instincts who got lucky in a firefight. She smiled slightly. That's the story. Stick to it. Hayes nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. Whatever your past, you're exactly who we need now. He walked away, leaving Lena alone in the gathering darkness. She stood there for a while, watching the base settle into evening routines, guard changes, chow hall filling up, the comfortable rhythms of military life. This was what she'd wanted, what she'd fought for, a normal existence doing meaningful work. But Blackthorn Valley had fractured that carefully constructed normalcy. Now she existed in a liminal space, not quite exposed, not quite safe, walking a tightrope between identities while everyone watched to see if she'd fall. The next morning, Lena reported to Dr. Martinez's office at precisely 800. He was younger than expected, maybe 35, with warm brown eyes and the kind of easy manner that put people at ease professionally while revealing nothing personally. Specialist Vance, please sit. His office was deliberately informal, comfortable chairs instead of clinical furniture, ambient lighting instead of fluorescence, bookshelves filled with psychology texts mixed with fantasy novels. Dr. Kwan mentioned you were combat medic, Lena said, settling into a chair. 4 years, Iraq and Afghanistan. Saw some shit, learned some things, decided I could help people better this way. He smiled. But we're not here to talk about me. What are we here to talk about? Whatever you want. These sessions are confidential unless you present a clear danger to yourself or others. He leaned back. So, how are you doing after Blackthorn Valley? Fine. Really? Really? Martinez was quiet for a moment. Let me try a different approach. I read the medical report. You sustained multiple contusions, a mild concussion, and lacerations from debris. You ran through active gunfire multiple times. You witnessed extreme violence, and you're telling me you're fine? I'm used to it. Used to combat? Used to things going wrong and having to adapt. Where did you learn that adaptability? And there it was, the gentle probe, the therapeutic equivalent of Carlson's interrogation. Life, Lena said simply. You either adapt or you break. I chose to adapt. That's a very tactical way of viewing trauma. I'm a very tactical person. Martinez smiled slightly. Yes, I've gathered that. He pulled out a notepad. Paper, not digital. Old school. Let's talk about yesterday. Not the official version, just what happened from your perspective. Lena considered lying, deflecting, but something about Martinez's manner, the genuine interest, the lack of judgment, made her want to try honesty, within limits. We were ambushed, she said. The team was pinned. People were wounded. I did what I was trained to do. Which training, medical or tactical? Both. Most medics don't receive tactical training at the level you apparently demonstrated. Most medics don't have my background. Which is? Lena met his eyes. Classified. Even in therapy? Especially in therapy. She paused. Look, Dr. Martinez, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but there are things I can't talk about. Not won't, can't. Legal restrictions, security protocols, ND, as that would make your head spin. I understand, but trauma doesn't care about classification levels. His voice was gentle but firm. Whatever you experienced, whatever you did, it leaves marks. And those marks don't heal just because you bury them in paperwork. I'm aware. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who's spent years building walls so high you've forgotten what it's like to not live in a fortress. The observation was uncomfortably accurate. Lena was quiet for a long moment. What if the walls are necessary? For what? Survival, sanity, keeping the people around me safe. Safe from what? From who I used to be. The admission surprised her. She hadn't meant to say it. Martinez leaned forward slightly. Who were you? Someone dangerous. And now? Someone trying not to be. They sat in silence, not uncomfortable, just present. Lena, Martinez said eventually, I'm not here to tear down your walls or force you to reveal classified information, but I'm here to help you process what happened at Blackthorn Valley, and maybe, if you're willing, to help you figure out how to integrate all the different versions of yourself into something sustainable. You think that's possible? I think you're already doing it. The question is whether you're doing it in a way that serves you or just serves the mission. Lena didn't have an answer for that. The session ended with Martinez scheduling weekly appointments and Lena feeling simultaneously exposed and oddly relieved. As she left his office, her radio crackled. Vance, report to medical. Emergency trauma incoming. She ran. But the emergency was a training accident, a Humvee rollover that had pinned a mechanic underneath. By the time Lena arrived, they'd extracted him, but the injuries were severe. Crushed pelvis, internal bleeding, deteriorating vitals. The other medics were already working, but they were young, inexperienced, starting to panic as the patient coded. Lena stepped in. Pressure here. More fluids. Get me a chest tube kit, now. Her voice cut through the chaos with absolute authority. The team responded instantly, falling into coordinated rhythm under her direction. She worked with clinical precision, stabilizing, assessing, making split-second decisions that came from years of experience they didn't know she had. 20 minutes later, the patient was stable enough to evacuate to the surgical facility. Dr. Kwan had watched the whole thing from the doorway. Where did you learn to run a trauma like that? She asked as they scrubbed out. Medical school, field work, experience. You're a specialist. You shouldn't have that level of command presence. Should I have let him die? Of course not, but Lena, that wasn't just good medicine. That was battlefield surgery at a level I've only seen from doctors with decades of experience. Kwan's eyes were sharp. What aren't you telling me? That I'm really good at my job? That you're overqualified for this position by about 3 pay grades and 10 years of experience? She paused. Which raises the question, why are you here? Because this is where I want to be. Why? Lena pulled off her gloves and met Kwan's gaze. Because I spent a long time doing work that killed people. Now I want to do work that saves them. That's all. It was the most honest thing she'd said to anyone in 3 years. Kwan studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, I can accept that. She started to leave, then paused. But Lena, whatever you're running from, make sure it doesn't catch up and hurt the people around you. I'm trying. Try harder. That evening, Lena was in the mess hall when Chen wheeled up to her table. Mind if I join? It's a free country. He positioned his wheelchair and grabbed his tray. So I've been thinking, dangerous. About Blackthorn Valley, and something doesn't add up. Lena continued eating. What's that? The shots that killed those 9 guys. I was there, remember? Half-conscious from blood loss and morphine, but there. And I heard them. He leaned forward. They were too precise, too fast, not random fire. Not lucky shots, each one deliberate, calculated. Maybe the air support was better than we thought. Bullshit. I've worked with air support. Helicopter door guns spray and pray. They don't make surgical strikes. He paused. But you know what does? Snipers. Really, really good snipers. Lena set down her fork. Where are you going with this, Chen? Nowhere, just thinking out loud. He met her eyes. Thanks for saving my life, both the medical part and the other part. There was no other part. Right. No other part. He grinned slightly. My mistake. He wheeled away, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts and the growing realization that her secrets had too many witnesses. Later that night, unable to sleep, she went to the firing range. It was empty at 0200 hours. Just her and the targets and the weight of muscle memory demanding release. She checked out a standard M4, loaded a magazine, and stepped to the line. The rifle felt wrong in her hands. Too light. Too familiar. Too much like coming home to a house that had burned down. She aimed at the furthest target, 300 meters. Breathed. Remembered Damascus. Remembered her team. Remembered why she'd walked away. And lowered the rifle without firing. Some doors, once closed, needed to stay that way. She returned the weapon unfired and walked back to barracks, feeling the ghost of who she'd been following 3 steps behind like a shadow at noon. Back in her bunk, she pulled out a small metal box from her footlocker. Inside was a single photograph. 4 people in tactical gear, faces obscured but postures relaxed. Her old team, Marcus, Yuki, Cairo, all dead. Because she'd survived. I'm sorry, she whispered to the photograph. I'm trying to do better. The faces in the photo didn't answer. They never did. She put the box away and lay in the darkness, listening to the base settle into sleep around her. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more scrutiny, more pressure to be someone she'd tried to leave behind. But tonight, she was just Lena Vance, medic, soldier, ghost, trying to figure out how to be all 3 without destroying everything she'd built, and failing, slowly, inevitably, but still trying. Because that's what ghosts do. They haunt the spaces between who they were and who they're trying to become, never quite belonging to either world, forever caught in the liminal space where the living and the dead negotiate terms of existence. And Lena Vance was the best negotiator she knew, even if the terms kept changing, even if the cost kept rising, even if, deep down, she knew that sooner or later the past would demand payment in full. Outside, the desert wind picked up, carrying sand and secrets across the base. Lena closed her eyes and let the sound wash over her. Tomorrow would come regardless. Tonight, she'd just exist. In the space between, where ghosts lived. And medics dreamed of being normal. Morning came too soon, dragging Lena from fitful sleep into the harsh reality of reveille and another day of pretending. She went through the motions on autopilot. PT, shower, breakfast, morning medical briefing. Dr. Kwan watched her with concern, but said nothing. The other medics gave her space, sensing something had shifted but unable to articulate what. By 0900, Lena was restocking supply cabinets when the base alarm shattered the routine. Not a drill. The tone was wrong. Urgent, sustained, carrying the particular frequency that meant real crisis. All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Repeat. This is not a drill. Lena's hand stilled on the bandage box. Her heart rate didn't spike. Training took over. The old training, the buried training, the training that analyzed threat patterns and calculated response times before conscious thought engaged. She moved to the window. Outside, the base was mobilizing. Soldiers running to positions. Vehicles starting. The controlled chaos of a military installation shifting to combat readiness. Her radio crackled. Hayes' voice tight with stress. Medical, we need trauma teams prepped. Multiple casualties incoming. What happened? Dr. Kwan demanded. Patrol hit an IED 3 clicks out. Heavy casualties. They're under fire and can't extract. We're mounting a rescue op, but... Static. Need medical ready for worst-case scenario. Lena was already moving, pulling trauma kits, setting up triage stations. The other medics followed her lead without question. Muscle memory from Blackthorn Valley. They'd learned to trust her instincts. 15 minutes later, the first wounded arrived. It was bad. Worse than bad. The IED had shredded the lead vehicle. 5 soldiers critically wounded, 2 more with severe trauma. They kept coming, bleeding, screaming, dying, faster than the medical team could process. "I need more hands!" "Doctor," Quan shouted, elbow deep in a chest cavity trying to stop arterial bleeding. "Room 2, another medic called. "He's coding." Lena split her focus, stabilizing one patient while directing another medic through emergency procedures, her voice calm and absolute even as blood soaked through her scrubs. But more wounded kept arriving. The rescue team had extracted the patrol, but taken casualties in the process. The enemy had rallied, pursuing the retreat, turning extraction into running firefight. "Vance, I need you on this one." Quan gestured to a soldier with traumatic amputation, bleeding out fast. Lena moved immediately, her hands working with practiced precision. Tourniquet, pressure, hemostatic agents. The soldier was young, maybe 20, eyes wide with shock and terror. "Stay with me," Lena said quietly. "You're going to be okay." "My leg, I can't feel my leg." "I know, but you're alive. Focus on that." She stabilized him just as the next wave hit. The medical facility was overwhelmed. Too many wounded, too few hands. The math of triage was brutal. Save who you can, accept who you can't, keep moving. And then Hayes burst through the door, bleeding from a gash on his forehead, supporting Merrick, who was barely conscious. "Shrapnel to the chest," Hayes gasped. He's bad." Lena didn't hesitate. She guided them to an empty table, assessing Merrick's injuries with clinical detachment, even as her mind screamed recognition. Penetrating chest trauma. Tension pneumothorax developing. Minutes to live without intervention. "I need a chest tube kit. Now." She worked fast, decompression needle first to relieve pressure, then the tube, her hands steady even as Merrick's vitals crashed. "Come on," she muttered. "Come on, Merrick, don't you dare quit on me." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Vance? Save your breath, literally. The others, Webb and Rains, are still out there." "What?" Hayes leaned against the wall, exhausted. "The enemies dug in at grid Alpha 7. We got most of the patrol out, but Webb and Rains were separated. They're pinned down, maybe a click from base. We can't get air support. Weather's closing in, and we don't have enough operational personnel for another extraction." "How many hostiles?" "Unknown. At least 15, maybe more." Lena's hands continued working on Merrick, but her mind was already running scenarios. 2 men pinned, unknown enemy force, limited rescue capacity, deteriorating weather. The math was bad. "What's command doing?" she asked. "Trying to organize a team. But everyone who's not wounded is holding defensive perimeter. The enemy's testing our lines. They think we're vulnerable." Hayes' voice was bitter. "They're not wrong." Merrick grabbed Lena's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "You have to get them. Webb and Rains, they're good men. They're..." He coughed, blood on his lips. "Shut up and breathe," Lena ordered, adjusting the chest tube. "You're not dying today. Promise me. Get them out." She looked at him, this man who'd dismissed her, doubted her, then defended her. This sergeant who'd become something like a friend. "I promise." She finished stabilizing Merrick and turned to Hayes. "Where exactly are they pinned?" "Grid Alpha 7, but Vance, you can't..." "Where?" "Exactly." Hayes pulled out a tactical map, pointing. "Here. Old compound, half collapsed. They've got some cover, but the enemy has them surrounded on 3 sides." Lena studied the map with the kind of focus she hadn't allowed herself in 3 years. Terrain, approach vectors, firing positions. The tactical picture assembled in her mind like a puzzle she'd solved 1,000 times before. "How long until command can mount a rescue?" "An hour, maybe more." "They don't have an hour." "I know that." Hayes slammed his fist against the wall. But what am I supposed to do? I've got 5 combat-ready personnel left. The rest are wounded, dead, or holding perimeter. We can't spare anyone for a rescue op." Lena looked around the medical facility. Wounded everywhere, medics struggling to keep up, Dr. Quan coordinating triage with desperate efficiency. She'd promised herself she'd never go back, never use those skills again, never be that person. But Webb and Rains were dying. and Merrick had asked her to promise. Some promises were worth breaking others to keep. "I'll go," she said quietly. Hayes stared at her. "What?" "I'll extract them." "Vance, you're a medic. I'm whatever I need to be." She started moving, grabbing gear. "I need a rifle, radio, basic tactical kit." "This is insane. You can't go alone against 15 hostiles." "I won't be fighting 15. I'll be extracting 2 and disappearing before they know I'm there." She paused, meeting his eyes. "Unless you have a better option." He didn't. "Give me 10 minutes to prep, then I'm gone." Dr. Kwan appeared beside them, having overheard. "Vance, you can't be serious." "Dead serious. You'll be killed." "Maybe, but Webb and Rains will definitely die if someone doesn't try." Lena turned to face her. "And I'm the only someone who might succeed." "Why? Because of Blackthorn Valley? That was luck." "It wasn't luck." Lena's voice was quiet but absolute. "It was training, skill, experience, things I've spent 3 years pretending I don't have. But I do have them. And right now, 2 men need them to survive." Kwan studied her face, reading something there that made her step back. "You're really going to do this?" "Yes." "Then take someone with you. Hayes, or—" "No. This is a stealth extraction, not an assault. More people means more noise, more variables, more risk." Lena was already moving toward the armory. "I work better alone." Hayes followed her. "At least let me coordinate from here. Give you radio support." "Fine. But understand something, Lieutenant. Once I'm out there, I'm running this op my way. You don't like my calls, you can file a complaint after I bring them home." She said it without arrogance, just fact. Hayes nodded slowly. "Bring them home, Specialist." "That's the plan." The armory sergeant was reluctant to issue gear to a medic, but Hayes pulled rank. 10 minutes later, Lena was equipped. M4 with suppressor, sidearm, tactical vest, radio, basic provisions. She checked each piece of equipment with practiced efficiency, her body remembering routines her mind had tried to forget. Dr. Kwan appeared one last time as Lena prepared to leave. "This is who you really are, isn't it?" she asked quietly. "Not the medic, the other thing." Lena paused. "I'm both, that's the problem. And if you don't come back? Then you'll have one less medic to worry about." She adjusted the rifle sling. "But I'm coming back, with Webb and Rains." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've done this before." Lena met her eyes. "And I was very, very good at it." She walked out before Kwan could respond. The base perimeter was tense, soldiers watching the horizon, weapons ready. Lena approached the western gate, where the terrain offered best approach to Grid Alpha 7. The gate guard looked uncertain. "Ma'am, I have orders not to let anyone through without command authorization." Hayes' voice crackled over the radio. "She's authorized, let her through." The guard stepped aside. Lena moved into the desert. The transformation was immediate. Years of civilian pretense fell away like dead skin. Her posture shifted, lower, smoother, predatory. Her breathing settled into combat rhythm. Her senses sharpened, processing terrain and threat vectors without conscious thought. This was what she'd run from. This was what she'd buried. This was what she was. The compound at Grid Alpha 7 was half a click ahead. Lena approached from the south, using terrain and available cover. The enemy positions were predictable: high ground, overlapping fields of fire, standard guerrilla tactics. She counted at least 12 hostiles visible, probably more in reserve. Bad odds. Unless you weren't planning to fight fair. Lena circled wide, finding a position with line of sight to the compound. Through her scope, she could see Webb and Rains, pinned behind a collapsed wall, returning sporadic fire. Webb's shoulder was bleeding again. Rains looked exhausted. They wouldn't last much longer. She keyed her radio, voice barely above whisper. "Hayes, I'm in position." "Copy. What's your plan?" "Eliminate their overwatch, create confusion, extract during chaos." "That's not a plan. That's suicide." "It's both." She scanned the enemy positions through her scope. 3 snipers on high ground. Take them out, the rest lose their eyes. They'll either panic or advance. Either way creates opportunity. "Advance? Going radio silent. See you in 20. She switched off before he could argue. The first target was 200 meters out. elevated position, scanning the compound through binoculars. Good discipline. Unfortunate timing. Lena settled her breathing, found the rhythm between heartbeats, let the world narrow to math and physics. The suppressed rifle coughed. The spotter dropped. No one noticed immediately. The suppressor in distance made it seem like he'd just ducked down, but Lena was already repositioning, finding new angle on the second sniper. This one was harder, partially concealed, moving occasionally. She waited for the moment, patient as death. There. Fire. Down. 2 gone. 1 left. The third sniper was the smartest, staying mobile, using cover effectively. But smart wasn't enough against someone who'd made a career of impossible shots. Lena tracked his pattern. 3 positions rotating every 40 seconds. Predictable once you saw the rhythm. She waited for the transition, that moment of movement between cover when he thought he was safe. The rifle spoke once more. 3 for 3. Now the enemy was blind. She moved immediately, relocating before they could backtrack the shots. The hostile force was confused. They'd lost their overwatch and didn't know how. Some were calling out, trying to figure out what happened. Others were advancing on the compound, thinking this was their chance. Perfect. Lena let them advance. When they were committed, too far from cover, focused on the compound, she opened up. Not spray and pray. Precision fire. Each shot deliberate. Each target selected for maximum psychological impact. She dropped the point man first, then the squad leader, then the heavy weapons specialist carrying the RPG. The enemy formation collapsed into chaos. They returned fire, but they didn't know where she was. Their rounds hit dirt 50 meters from her position while she calmly relocated again. This was what Wraith Protocol had done best. Asymmetric warfare against superior numbers. Ghosts didn't fight fair. They fought smart. She dropped 2 more hostiles from her new position, then switched targets to the eastern approach where reinforcements were trying to flank. The suppressed rifle was a whisper of death. Each shot created new confusion, new panic. Within 90 seconds, she'd killed 8 and the rest were breaking. Not running, disciplined fighters didn't run easily, but retreating to regroup, trying to understand what was killing them. That was all the time she needed. Lena sprinted toward the compound, covering the distance in a combat run that ate up ground with terrifying efficiency. She hit the wall beside Webb and Rains, sliding into cover. Jesus Christ! Webb jerked around, weapon coming up before recognition hit. Vance? Time to go. She was already assessing his injuries. The shoulder wound had reopened. Can you run? Yes. What the hell are you doing here? Saving your ass, again. She turned to Rains. Status? Low on ammo. Legs hit, but I'm mobile. He was staring at her with something between awe and disbelief. Did you just kill 8 hostiles by yourself? 9. The first 3 were Overwatch. She checked her own ammunition. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they regroup and realize there's only one shooter. By then, we need to be gone. One shooter? Webb's voice cracked. You're one person, and they're about to be very dead people if they follow us. She pulled out a smoke grenade. On my mark, we move east. Stay low, stay close, don't stop for anything. Vance, there's no cover that direction. There is if you know where to look. She met their eyes. Trust me. Something in her voice, the absolute certainty, made them nod. Mark. She threw the smoke grenade. White phosphorus billowed, creating instant concealment. They moved. Lena led them through the terrain that looked impassable, but had a route if you knew exactly where to step. She'd studied this land from satellite imagery 3 months ago during her first week on base. Standard operational procedure from her old life, gathering tactical intelligence even when she hoped never to use it. Old habits died hard, especially when they kept you alive. They covered 50 meters before the enemy realized what was happening. Gunfire erupted behind them, but they were already into the ravine system Lena had identified, a network of natural trenches that provided cover and concealment. Keep moving! She brought up the rear, occasionally turning to fire suppressing shots that kept pursuers cautious. Webb was struggling, his shoulder bleeding freely. Rains was limping badly despite his claims of mobility. They weren't going to make it at this pace. Hayes, Lena keyed her radio. Need emergency extraction at Grid Alpha 9. 2 wounded, 1 escort. ETA 4 minutes. Alpha 9 is outside our defensive perimeter. We can't. You can and you will. Get a vehicle there or start planning funerals. She cut him off. 3 minutes later, they reached Alpha 9, a natural depression that offered the only vehicle-accessible approach in this terrain. No extraction vehicle, but plenty of pursuit. Lena positioned Webb and Rains in cover. Stay down. Don't fire unless you have to. What are you doing? Rains demanded. Buying time. She moved to a flanking position, taking a knee behind a rock formation that gave her perfect overwatch. The enemy appeared 30 seconds later, 8 fighters moving in loose formation, weapons ready, scanning for targets. Professional, disciplined, unlucky. Lena let them enter the kill zone. Then she went to work. The suppressed rifle coughed its quiet song. 1, 2, 3. Precision shots at close range where there was no missing. The surviving 5 scattered, seeking cover, trying to locate the shooter. 4. 5. Now they knew where she was. Return fire chewed up the rock beside her head. 6. Her rifle clicked empty. 2 hostiles left, and they were advancing on her position while she reloaded. She dropped the rifle, drew her sidearm, and stepped into the open. The first hostile's eyes went wide as she appeared. Close range, no cover, suicidal positioning. Except she was faster. 2 shots. Center, mass. He dropped. The last hostile fired wildly, panic overriding training. His rounds went wide. Hers didn't. He fell. Silence crashed over the depression like a physical weight. Lena stood in the center of the carnage, surrounded by bodies, her sidearm still raised. 15 hostiles dead, 0 friendly casualties. This was what she'd been, what she could still be when necessary, and it terrified her. The sound of engines broke the moment. A base Humvee roared into the depression, Hayes behind the wheel with 2 security personnel. He took one look at the scene, bodies everywhere, Lena standing alone, and his face went pale. Get them loaded, Lena said quietly, holstering her weapon. The security team helped Webb and Rains into the vehicle while Hayes approached Lena. 15, he said. You killed 15. 16 if you count the one from the initial ambush patrol. Her voice was flat, clinical. But who's tracking? Vance, can we discuss this after we're not in a combat zone? They loaded up and drove back to base in tense silence. The base medical facility erupted into controlled chaos when they arrived. Dr. Kwan personally took charge of Webb and Rains, shouting orders while shooting Lena looks that promised later conversation. Lena helped transfer the wounded, then tried to slip away. Hayes caught her arm. My office, now. His office was small and utilitarian. He closed the door and turned to face her. What the hell was that? A successful extraction. You killed 16 people. I saved 2. She met his eyes. Would you prefer different math? Hayes ran his hand through his hair, pacing. Command is going to lose their minds. Carlson and Reeves are going to come down on this like a hammer. And He stopped, looking at her. I don't even know what to put in the report. The truth. Specialist Vance conducted emergency extraction of 2 pinned personnel under hostile fire. That's not, you single-handedly eliminated an entire hostile force using tactics and skills that don't exist in your official record. Then maybe my official record is incomplete. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Lena's exhaustion was catching up with her, the adrenaline crash, the weight of what she'd done. Lieutenant, I did what needed to be done. 2 men are alive because of it. If command has a problem with my methods, they can file it with my next performance review. This isn't about performance reviews. This is about... He struggled for words. You're not who you claim to be. Everyone knows it now. The entire base saw you leave alone and come back with 2 wounded and a body count that would make a special forces team jealous. So what do you want me to say? That I lied? That I'm more than a medic? She stepped closer. Fine. I'm more. I've always been more. And today, that saved lives. Are you going to punish me for it? Hayes was quiet for a long time. No, but I can't protect you from what's coming. I'm not asking you to. A knock on the door. Park's voice. Lieutenant, command wants you in the briefing room. Now. Hayes and Lena exchanged glances. This is it, he said quietly. Whatever happens next, I'll handle it. They walked to the briefing room together. Colonel Marks was there. So were Carlson and Reeves. And a new face, a woman in a dark suit with the kind of bearing that screamed classified authority. Specialist Vance, Mark said. Sit down. She sat. I've read Lieutenant Hayes' preliminary report on today's extraction operation. Mark's voice was carefully neutral. 16 confirmed hostile kills, 0 friendly casualties, tactical execution at a level that raises significant questions. Sir, I'm not finished. He leaned forward. I've also received reports about Blackthorn Valley, about a training exercise where you demonstrated advanced trauma response beyond your pay grade, about multiple incidents where your capabilities have exceeded your official designation. He paused. Who are you, really? The woman in the dark suit spoke before Lena could answer. She's Wraith 3, last surviving member of Wraith Protocol, a black operations unit disbanded 4 years ago after a catastrophic failure in Damascus. Her voice was crisp, authoritative. Her real name is Lena Vance, but for 3 years of her life, she was one of the most effective precision elimination specialists in modern military history. The room went silent. Lena looked at the woman. And you are? Director Sarah Chen, Defense Intelligence. I've been tracking you since Blackthorn Valley. She smiled thinly. Welcome back to the world, Wraith 3. Lena didn't flinch, didn't react, just sat perfectly still while her carefully constructed identity disintegrated in a single sentence. Colonel Marks turned to Director Chen. You're saying we've had a classified Black Ops operative working as a medic for 3 months and no one knew? That was the arrangement, Chen said. After Damascus, certain parties wanted Wraith 3 eliminated. We negotiated a different solution: complete identity burial, reassignment to non-combat role, total operational silence. She was supposed to disappear. She did disappear, Carlson said. Until Blackthorn Valley. And today's extraction, Reeves added, pulling up footage on a tablet. We have drone surveillance of the entire operation. 16 confirmed kills in under 8 minutes. Precision marksmanship, advanced tactical movement. This is textbook Wraith Protocol methodology. They played the footage. Lena watched herself on screen, a ghost moving through terrain, each shot deliberate, each movement economical. It looked like someone else. It felt like someone else. But it was her. Hayes spoke up, voice tight. With respect, ma'am, I authorized that extraction. 2 of my men were going to die without intervention. Specialist Vance volunteered. Specialist Vance doesn't exist, Chen interrupted. Not really. She's a cover identity for an operator who was legally declared KYA 4 years ago. She turned to Lena. You violated the terms of your arrangement. You were supposed to maintain low profile, never use operational skills, never surface in any capacity that would draw attention. I saved lives, Lena said quietly. You exposed yourself, twice. That's unacceptable. So is letting people die when I could prevent it? Chen's expression hardened. Your emotional attachment to your cover identity is noted, but irrelevant. You're not a medic. You're a precision elimination specialist with a body count in the triple digits. That's who you are. That's who you'll always be. No? Lena's voice was soft but absolute. That's who I was. I chose different. You don't get to choose. Not after what you did. Not after Damascus. The name hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Colonel Marks cleared his throat. Someone want to explain Damascus? Chen pulled up a classified file, eyes-only clearance stamps covering every page. 4 years ago, Wraith Protocol was assigned to extract a high-value intelligence asset from Damascus. The operation was compromised. The asset was executed. 3 members of Wraith Protocol were killed. Only Wraith 3 survived. How? Marks asked. By being better than everyone else in the room. Chen's voice carried grudging respect. She fought her way out through 40 hostiles, eliminated 17, and made extraction under conditions that should have been impossible. But the mission failed. The asset died. And questions were raised about whether Wraith 3 could have saved her team if she'd prioritized differently. Lena's hands clenched under the table. I made the only choice that kept me alive. At the cost of your team. At the cost of following orders that were based on bad intelligence and political cowardice. Lena's voice dropped to something dangerous. We were hung out to dry, told extraction was minutes away when it was hours, told the building was clear when it was a trap. My team died because someone in a safe office made decisions without understanding the ground truth. That's not how the official report reads. The official report is a lie designed to protect careers. Lena met Chen's eyes, and we both know it. Silence stretched taut. Carlson leaned forward. If the operation was compromised, how did you survive? The after-action report says the building was leveled by airstrike 20 minutes after initial contact. I was good at my job, Lena said flatly. I killed everyone between me and the exit, then I ran. When the building came down, I was already 2 blocks away bleeding out in an alley. She paused. Marcus, Yuki, and Cairo weren't. They stayed to complete the mission while I secured the extraction point. They followed orders. I didn't. You abandoned your team, Reeves said. I survived. Lena's voice was ice. There's a difference. Hayes spoke up again. With respect, what does any of this have to do with what happened today? Vance, Wraith 3, whatever you want to call her, saved 2 of my men. The methods are irrelevant. The methods are everything, Chen said. Wraith Protocol was disbanded because their operations became liability. Too high profile, too many questions. We couldn't maintain deniability. She looked at Lena. And now you've created exactly the same problem. Twice. So what's your solution? Lena asked. Another burial? Different cover identity? Or do we skip the pretense and you just eliminate the problem permanently? The threat was delivered calmly, without inflection. Chen smiled slightly. There's a third option. Which is? Reactivation. The word dropped like a bomb. No, Lena said immediately. You don't have a choice. I always have a choice. Not anymore. Chen pulled up another document. Your arrangement was conditional on maintaining absolute obscurity. You violated that condition twice, which means the terms are void. And that means you revert to your original status, active operator, defense intelligence asset, subject to deployment as needed. I won't do it. Then you go to prison for desertion, fraud, and about 15 other charges I can manufacture. Chen's voice was pleasant, conversational. Or worse, I declassify your file and let certain interested parties know that Wraith 3 is alive. The same parties who wanted you dead 4 years ago. How long do you think you'd survive? Lena's jaw tightened. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice. Return to operational status or face consequences. Chen stood. You have 24 hours to decide. She walked out, leaving silence in her wake. Colonel Marks exhaled slowly. This is above my pay grade. Way above. He looked at Lena. Specialist. I don't even know what to call you. Lena works. Lena, I don't know what's going to happen here, but until someone tells me different, you're still assigned to this base and under my command. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Good. Dismissed. Lena stood, but Hayes caught her arm. Wait outside. I need to talk to the colonel. She stepped into the hallway, leaning against the wall, feeling the weight of exposure settling on her shoulders like wet concrete. Footsteps approached. Merrick, chest bandaged but mobile, walking with careful precision. You're supposed to be in medical, Lena said. So are you. He leaned against the opposite wall. I heard what happened. The extraction. 16 hostiles. 17 if you count the math. Jesus. He was quiet for a moment. Webb and Rains are alive because of you. They're alive because I broke every rule I set for myself. Some rules need breaking. Merrick studied her. I also heard what happened in there. The whole Wraith Protocol thing. News travels fast. Base this size? There are no secrets. He paused. Is it true? Damascus? All of it? Lena was quiet for a long time. Yes. And you've been living as a medic because I wanted to save lives instead of taking them. Because I was tired of being a weapon someone else aimed. Because I thought maybe I could be something different. She laughed bitterly. Guess that didn't work out. I don't know. You saved a lot of lives these past 3 months. Blackthorn Valley, today, all the routine medical work. Merrick pushed off the wall. Seems like you succeeded at being what you wanted. until circumstances demanded you be what you were. And now I'm right back where I started. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're the only person who gets to decide what you are. He started walking away, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're both. The medic and the ghost. We need both. He left her standing in the hallway with too many thoughts and no good answers. The door opened. Hayes emerged, expression troubled. Walk with me. They moved through the base in silence, heading toward the perimeter. The sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of amber and blood. What did Mark say? Lena asked. That this is a political nightmare and he wants no part of it. Hayes stopped at the fence, looking out at the endless sand. But between you and me, he's impressed. Said if half his personnel had your skills and judgment, we'd have won this war years ago. That doesn't help my situation. No, it doesn't. Hayes turned to face her. But maybe I can. I've been authorized to make you an offer. I've already had one offer today. This one's different. Colonel Marks wants to keep you here, in medical, but with expanded responsibilities, tactical medical consultant, training new corpsmen, advising on high-risk extractions. He paused. Basically, you'd be exactly what you've been, but with formal recognition of your other skills. And Chen? Marks will fight her. Make the case that you're more valuable here than in whatever Black Ops hole she wants to throw you in. Hayes' expression was serious. But it only works if you want it. If you're willing to integrate both sides of yourself instead of choosing one. Lena looked out at the desert, thinking about the past 3 years. The careful construction of normalcy. The daily choice to heal instead of harm. And the past 2 days, where that choice had been stripped away. I don't know if I can be both, she admitted. Every time I pick up a rifle, I remember why I put it down. Damascus, my team. All the people I couldn't save because I was too busy killing. You saved 5 people at Blackthorn Valley, 2 today. How many more over the past 3 months in routine medical care? Hayes moved closer. You're not just one thing, Vance. None of us are. The question isn't whether you can be both. It's whether you're willing to accept that you already are. The words settled into her chest like a key finding its lock. What happens if I say yes? Marks backs you. You stay here, keep your cover as specialist. But we all know what you really are. And when situations demand it, situations like today, you do what needs to be done. Hayes smiled slightly. Think of it as being our secret weapon who happens to be really good at bandaging cuts. And if Chen doesn't accept that, then we fight her. Together. He extended his hand. What do you say? Lena looked at his hand for a long moment. This was the choice, she realized. Not between medic and ghost. Between hiding and integrating. Between denying part of herself and accepting all of it. She shook his hand. Okay, I'm in. Good. Hayes' grip was firm. Now let's go tell Chen to shove her reactivation order where the sun doesn't shine. They found Director Chen in the officers' quarters, reviewing files on her laptop. Director, Hayes said, we need to talk about your offer. There's nothing to discuss. Wraith 3 has 24 hours to decide. She's already decided. The answer is no. Chen looked up, expression neutral. Then she accepts the consequences. Actually, Colonel Marks said, entering behind them, she accepts my offer. Specialist Vance is being reassigned to expanded medical duties with tactical consultation responsibilities. She remains under my command, on this base, doing exactly what she's been doing. That's not your decision to make. It absolutely is. She's assigned to my base. That makes her my responsibility. Marks pulled out his own tablet. I've already filed the paperwork with Central Command, copied to Defense Intelligence Oversight Committee. You want to fight this, Director, you'll need to go through proper channels. Chen's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Mark's voice was steel wrapped in courtesy. Specialist Vance has proven herself an invaluable asset to this base. Medical, tactical, leadership. I'm not letting you bury that in some black site because you can't handle the fact that she chose different. She's a security risk. She's a decorated soldier who's saved more lives in 3 months than most personnel do in entire careers. Mark stepped closer. And if you have a problem with that, take it up with my CO. Until then, she stays. Chen looked between them, calculating. Then her expression shifted to something almost amused. You really think you can protect her? I think we can try, Hayes said. And I think you're all fools. Chen closed her laptop. But fine. Keep your ghost medic. When this blows up in your faces, don't say I didn't warn you. She walked out without another word. Marks waited until she was gone, then exhaled heavily. That woman is going to be a problem. She already is a problem, Hayes said. True, but a problem for tomorrow. Marks turned to Lena. Specialist Vance, report to medical. You're still on duty. Yes, sir. And Vance, welcome to the circus. Try not to shoot anyone unless absolutely necessary. I'll do my best, sir. Back in medical, Dr. Kwan was waiting. My office, now. They sat in the small, organized space. Kwan didn't speak for a full minute, just studied Lena with clinical detachment. Wraith protocol, she finally said. Precision elimination specialist. Damascus survivor. Secret identity. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. And here I thought you were just an overqualified medic with a mysterious past. I'm sorry I lied. You didn't lie. You just omitted about 90% of relevant information. Kwan leaned back. The question is, can I trust you? I've never lied about my medical capabilities, never cut corners on patient care, never let my past interfere with my duties. Lena met her eyes. I'm a good medic, Dr. Kwan. That's not false. It's just incomplete. Incomplete. Kwan considered the word. That's one way to put it. She pulled up Lena's personnel file. I'm updating your official duties. You'll continue standard medical rotation, but you're also now tactical medical consultant, which means when operations go sideways, you're authorized to do whatever's necessary to keep people alive. Using both skill sets. Using every skill set you have. Because frankly, this base needs someone who can stitch wounds and eliminate threats with equal competence. Kwan's expression softened slightly. But Lena, if you ever lie to me again about anything that affects my ability to do my job, I will make your life a living hell. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. Now get back to work. Webb and Rains need post-op checks. Lena found Webb in recovery, his shoulder properly bandaged, vitals stable. He was awake, staring at the ceiling. Hey, she said quietly. Hey yourself. He didn't look at her. So, Wraith protocol. That's a thing. Apparently. Should I be scared? Of me? Lena pulled up a chair. No, I'm the same person I was yesterday. Are you, though? Now he did look at her. Because yesterday, I thought you were just our medic. Quiet, capable, safe. Today I find out you're some legendary Black Ops ghost with a body count that makes action movies look tame. Does it change anything? Webb was quiet for a long time. You saved my life, twice, ran through gunfire to drag me out, then came back today when you didn't have to. He met her eyes. So no. Doesn't change anything. You're still the person who risked everything to keep me breathing. That's who you are to me. The simple acceptance was almost painful. Thank you, Lena said quietly. Don't thank me yet. Base is going crazy. Everyone knows now. You're going to be dealing with a lot of attention. He wasn't wrong. Over the next week, Lena's life transformed in ways both subtle and overt. Soldiers who'd never spoken to her now nodded in hallways. Officers sought her tactical input on operations. The younger medics watched her work with new respect, tinged with unease. She was no longer invisible, but she was also no longer entirely trusted. Dr. Martinez noticed during their next session, "You seem tense." "I'm always tense." "More than usual." He set down his notepad. "Talk to me about integration. How's it going?" Define going. Are you finding balance between your identities, or is one overwhelming the other? Lena considered the question. I'm learning that they're not separate. They never were. I just wanted them to be. Why? Because accepting that I'm both means accepting that I'm comfortable with violence, that some part of me is good at it, maybe even likes it. She paused. That's a hard thing to admit when you're trying to be someone who heals. But you are both. Healer and warrior. Those aren't contradictions, they're complementary. Martinez leaned forward. The ancient Greeks understood this. Paeon, deity of healing, was also called upon in battle. Healing and fighting were two sides of the same coin, both about preserving life. By taking it? By protecting it. Sometimes protection requires force. That doesn't make you a monster. It makes you complete. The words resonated in ways Lena wasn't ready to examine. 2 weeks after the extraction, Chen returned. She found Lena in the medical bay, teaching a class on emergency thoracotomy. Specialist Vance, a word. They stepped into a private room. "I've reviewed the situation," Chen said without preamble, "and I'm withdrawing my reactivation order." Lena blinked. "You are?" "Don't misunderstand. I still think you're wasted here. But Colonel Marks made a compelling case, and frankly, the political capital required to force the issue isn't worth the return." She pulled out a document. "However, there are conditions." "Of course there are. You remain on this base. You don't take assignments outside established parameters without clearance. You keep your head down and your profile low." Chen's eyes were hard. "And if you ever need to use your operational skills again, you file a full report with my office within 24 hours. No exceptions." "That's it?" "That's it. You get to keep playing medic. Just remember, I'm watching. One misstep, one security breach, one hint that you're becoming a liability." She didn't finish the threat. Didn't need to. "Understood." "Good." Chen moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Vance, Damascus wasn't your fault. The intelligence failure, the abandoned extraction, your team dying, none of that was on you." "Then why does it feel like it was?" "Because you're a soldier. We always carry the weight of the ones we couldn't save." Chen's expression was almost sympathetic. "But carrying it doesn't mean you have to let it define you." She left. Lena stood alone in the room, feeling something shift in her chest. Not resolution, not peace, but maybe the beginning of acceptance. That night, the team gathered at the mess hall. Hayes, Merrick, Rains, Webb, Chen, Park. An informal celebration of survival. "To Vance," Merrick raised his glass. "Medic, ghost, pain in the ass." "Here, here," Webb added. "May she never have to save our asses again." "But if we need saving," Rains said. "Glad she's around." They drank, talked, laughed about near-death experiences with the particular gallows humor of people who'd survived them. Lena sat quietly, listening, being present, being part of something. Hayes leaned over. "You good?" "Getting there. That's all anyone can ask." Later, walking back to barracks under a sky full of desert stars, Lena felt the accumulated weight of 3 years beginning to shift. She wasn't just a medic. She wasn't just a ghost. She was both. And maybe that was okay. The past would always be there. Damascus. Wraith Protocol. The people she'd lost and the person she'd been. But the present was here too. Real. Solid. Full of people who knew what she was and accepted her anyway. That had to count for something. Back in her quarters, she pulled out the photograph of her old team one last time. Marcus. Yuki. Cairo. "I'm still trying," she told them, "to honor what you taught me, to use these skills the right way, to be someone you'd be proud of." The faces in the photo didn't judge. They never had. She put the photo back and lay down, feeling exhaustion pull her toward sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, new opportunities to prove she could be both healer and warrior without losing herself in either. But tonight, she just existed. In the space between identities, where the ghost and the medic met, and maybe, just maybe, found peace. Outside, the base settled into its nocturnal rhythm. Guards patrolled, generators hummed, the machinery of war ground on. And in Medical Bay Room 7, Specialist Lena Vance slept the sleep of someone who'd finally stopped running from herself. The war wasn't over. Her past wasn't resolved. The future remained uncertain. But for the first time in 4 years, she wasn't facing it alone. And that made all the difference. Morning light filtered through the barracks window, pulling Lena from the deepest sleep she'd had in years. For a moment, just a moment, she forgot where she was. forgot the weight of exposure, forgot the complicated reality of being both medic and ghost. Then memory returned, and with it, acceptance. She rose, dressed, and headed to morning formation like she had every day for 3 months. But today felt different. The sidelong glances from other soldiers carried less suspicion, more curiosity. Some even nodded in acknowledgement. Small shifts, but shifts nonetheless. Dr. Kwan caught her after formation. Conference room, 10 minutes. Bring coffee, you'll need it. The conference room held Hayes, Merrick, Colonel Marks, and a face Lena hadn't expected, a lean man in his 50s with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who'd spent decades making hard decisions. Specialist Vance, Mark said, this is General William Cross, Central Command. He wanted to meet you personally. Cross extended his hand. Wraith 3. I've read your file. Multiple times. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. Lena shook his hand cautiously. Sir, relax. I'm not here to drag you back into operations. Cross gestured to a chair. Sit. We need to talk about your future. They sat. Cross pulled up a tablet, scrolling through documents. I've reviewed the incidents at Blackthorn Valley and Grid Alpha 7. Also, your complete operational history from Wraith Protocol, your medical performance over the past 3 months, and about 24 classified assessments from people who've worked with you. He looked up. You're a paradox specialist. Elite operator who chose to be a medic. Precision killer who saves lives. Someone who should be running Black Ops missions but prefers bandaging routine injuries. Is there a question in there, sir? Just an observation. And a proposal. Cross set down the tablet. Central Command wants to create a new program. Tactical medical response teams. Operators with advanced medical training who can function in high-risk environments where traditional medics can't survive. He paused. We want you to design the program. Train the first teams, be the template. Lena was quiet for a moment. You want me to create more people like me? We want to create people who can do what you do. Integrate combat effectiveness with medical capability. Save lives in situations where others would die trying. Cross leaned forward. This isn't about turning medics into killers. It's about giving them the skills to survive and operate in extreme conditions. And what would my role be? Chief instructor, program director. You'd stay on base, develop curriculum, train candidates, advise on implementation. Cross smiled slightly. Basically, you'd be exactly what Colonel Mark suggested, tactical medical consultant with formal authority and resources. Hayes spoke up. This is a good opportunity, Vance. Real chance to make a difference on a larger scale. And it keeps you visible, Merrick added. Hard for Chen or anyone else to bury you when you're running a high-profile program. Lena looked at each of them, reading the subtext. This wasn't just an offer. It was protection. A way to legitimize her dual nature while keeping her close. I need to think about it, she said. You have 48 hours, Cross said. After that, I need an answer. He stood, and they all rose with him. One more thing, Specialist, Cross said at the door. Damascus wasn't your fault. I've read the real after-action report. The classified one, not the sanitized version. Your team followed orders based on flawed intelligence. You made the tactical decision that kept one operator alive. That's not abandonment, that's survival. He paused. Don't let guilt over their deaths prevent you from honoring their memory by living well. He left, taking Marks and Hayes with him. Merrick remained behind. What do you think? He asked. I think it sounds too good to be true. Maybe it is. Or maybe you've spent so long expecting punishment that you can't recognize opportunity. Merrick moved to the window, looking out at the base. I've been military for 12 years, seen a lot of programs come and go. This one, it's needed. People like you who can fight and heal. That's the future of combat medicine. People like me shouldn't exist. The skills required, they're contradictory. They're complementary. You proved that. He turned to face her. Stop punishing yourself for being good at something difficult. Start using it to make the system better. When did you become a philosopher? When I almost died and a ghost medic saved my life. He grinned. Gives you perspective. After he left, Lena sat alone in the conference room thinking. This was the choice, really. Not between medic and operator, between hiding and leading. Between diminishing herself to avoid attention and stepping forward to create something meaningful. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photograph of her old team she'd saved digitally. "What would you do?" she asked them silently. Marcus would tell her to stop overthinking and take the opportunity. Yuki would analyze every angle before making a recommendation. Cairo would crack a joke about how Lena never could stay retired. They'd all tell her to live, fully, without apology. She made her decision. The next morning, Lena found General Cross in the officers' mess, reviewing reports over coffee. "I'm in," she said without preamble. "But I have conditions." Cross looked up, unsurprised. "I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Sit." She sat. First condition: the program trains people to save lives first, fight second. Medical skills are primary, tactical skills are supplementary. I won't create assassins with first aid training. Agreed. Second, I get final approval on all candidates. No political appointments, no nepotism, no one who doesn't meet standards. Done. Third, the program remains transparent. No black ops missions, no classified assassinations, no Damascus-style operations where politicians sacrifice operators for deniability. Cross was quiet for a moment. That's harder to guarantee. Then guarantee what you can control. Full operational transparency to oversight committees, mandatory after-action reviews, and ironclad rules of engagement. Lena met his eyes. I won't create another Wraith protocol. This needs to be legitimate or I walk. You drive a hard bargain. I learned from the best and the worst. She paused. Do we have a deal? Cross extended his hand. We have a deal. Welcome to Program Leadership, Director Vance. I'm not a director. You are now, along with the rank promotion that comes with it. Congratulations, Lieutenant Vance. The title felt foreign, wrong, but also right. When do we start? 2 weeks. Gives you time to transition your medical duties and develop initial curriculum. Cross pulled out a folder. Here's your budget, facility access, and preliminary candidate pool. Also, you'll need to select an assistant director, someone who understands both sides of what you're building. Lena already knew who she'd choose. She found Merrick in the training yard running new recruits through basic combat drills. I need to ask you something, she said. Shoot. How do you feel about a promotion? He stopped mid-instruction, turned to face her. Explain. I'm taking the program director position. I need an assistant director who understands combat operations and has credibility with both medical and tactical personnel. Someone who won't let me disappear into my own head when things get complicated. She paused. Someone I trust. Merrick studied her face. You're serious. Dead serious. I'm a sergeant. I'm not qualified. You're getting promoted to staff sergeant, then to warrant officer track. Cross already approved it if you accept. Lena stepped closer. You're exactly qualified. You've seen me at my worst and my best. You know what this program needs to be because you've lived the gap it's designed to fill. This is crazy. Probably. But it's the right kind of crazy. She smiled slightly. What do you say, Assistant Director Merrick? He was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then he grinned. I say you better have good coffee in that office because I'm going to need it. We'll get the best coffee the military can provide. So, terrible coffee. The absolute worst. They shook hands and Lena felt another piece of her future clicking into place. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Lena transferred her primary medical duties to other corpsmen, though she kept clinical hours to maintain her skills. She couldn't be just an administrator. The work mattered too much. She and Merrick developed curriculum that balanced tactical training with advanced medical protocols. They reviewed candidate files, debated teaching methodologies, argued about standards, until Hayes threatened to lock them in a room until they agreed. Dr. Kwan provided input on medical components. Hayes advised on tactical integration. Even Chen sent notes, surprisingly constructive ones, about operational security and oversight requirements. The program was taking shape. And Lena was finding purpose she hadn't felt since before Damascus. One evening, she was working late in her new office when Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway. Burning the midnight oil? Someone has to. He sat down uninvited. How are you handling all this? The exposure, the new role, The integration of your identities? Better than expected, worse than I'd like. She set down her tablet. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Chen to change her mind, for someone to decide I'm too dangerous to leave operational. But that hasn't happened. Not yet. Maybe it won't. Martinez leaned back. Maybe you found the right balance, the right people, the right purpose. Or maybe I'm just in the eye of the storm. Always the optimist, he smiled. For what it's worth, I think you're doing something remarkable. Creating a program that honors both sides of who you are. That's not running from your past. That's transforming it into something constructive. Is this therapy or a pep talk? Can it be both? After he left, Lena returned to work, but his words lingered. Transformation, not running. Maybe that was the key she'd been missing. 3 weeks into program development, Webb appeared during one of Lena's training sessions. His shoulder was healed, and he was back on full duty. But he'd requested transfer to the new program as a candidate. You sure about this? Lena asked as they reviewed his application. Positive. I've seen what you can do, what this program could create. I want to be part of it. He paused. Plus, I figure if I'm going to almost die in combat zones, I'd rather know how to keep myself and others alive. Fair point. Also, he hesitated. I want to understand how you do it, how you switch between healer and warrior without losing yourself. Who says I don't lose myself? Because you're still here, still choosing to heal, still trying to be better. Webb met her eyes. That takes strength, I want to learn. She approved his application on the spot. Chen showed up the next day. Heard you accepted Webb as a candidate, she said, entering Lena's office without knocking. He's qualified. He's also traumatized from 2 near-death experiences where you were the common factor. Chen sat down. You sure that's healthy? I'm sure it's his choice, and he's mentally fit according to Psyche Val. Still, keeping close to your savior? Classic trauma bonding. Or maybe he just wants to learn useful skills. Lena set down her pen. What do you really want, Director Chen? To understand why you're doing this. You could have taken a quiet medical posting, stayed invisible. Instead, you're creating a high-profile program that puts you front and center. Chen's eyes were sharp. That's the opposite of what someone running from their past would do. I'm not running anymore. No, you're not. Chen smiled slightly, which is either very brave or very stupid. Time will tell which. Is there a point to this visit? Just checking in, making sure you're not becoming a security risk. Chen stood. Also, I read your program proposal. It's good, really good. If it works, it could change how we approach combat medicine. That's the goal. Just remember, good intentions don't prevent catastrophic failures. Damascus proved that. Chen moved to the door. Watch your back, Vance. Not everyone wants you to succeed. She left, and Lena sat in the quiet office, processing the warning. Chen wasn't wrong. Success would bring attention. Attention would bring scrutiny, and scrutiny could still unravel everything. But running hadn't worked. Hiding hadn't worked. Maybe facing it head-on was the only option left. Odd. 2 months after accepting the director position, the program officially launched. 15 candidates selected from across military branches. 8 weeks of intensive training combining advanced trauma medicine with tactical operations. Graduation would certify them as Tactical Medical Response Operators, a new designation in military structure. The first day of training, Lena stood before the assembled candidates in a converted warehouse that served as their training facility. You're here, she began, because someone thought you had potential to do something difficult, to be both healer and protector, to save lives in conditions where others fail. She paused, making eye contact with each candidate. I'm here to tell you that's only half the battle. The other half is learning when to heal and when to fight, when to save and when to let go, when to be gentle and when to be absolute. She walked along the line of candidates. This program will push you past your limits. Medical, tactical, psychological. You'll learn to set IVs under fire, perform surgery in rubble, make triage decisions that haunt you, and you'll learn to fight, not because we're creating soldiers who happen to know medicine, but because sometimes the only way to save a life is to take one. Webb stood among the candidates, eyes focused and determined. Some of you won't make it, Lena continued. Not because you're weak, but because this specific combination of skills requires a particular mindset. You have to be comfortable with contradictions. You have to hold life sacred while understanding that sometimes violence is necessary to protect it. She stopped at the front of the room. That's hard, really hard, and if you can't reconcile those things, that's okay. But you need to figure it out fast because lives will depend on you. She nodded to Merrick, who stepped forward with training schedules. Welcome to Tactical Medical Response, Merrick said. Hope you brought your pain tolerance. The training began. Week 3. They lost their first candidate. Not to injury, to psychological breakdown. The combination of trauma care and tactical pressure proved too much. She broke during a simulation where she had to choose between saving a patient and engaging a threat. Lena found her in the equipment room, crying. I can't do it, the candidate said. I can't make those choices. Then you can't be in this program, Lena said gently. And that's okay. This isn't for everyone. But I failed. No, you learned something about yourself. That's not failure. That's self-awareness. Lena sat beside her. Combat medicine is one thing. Combat medicine with tactical responsibility is something else. You tried. That's more than most people would do. The candidate left the program without shame. Lena made sure everyone understood recognition of limits wasn't weakness. Week 5, they had their first major success. A training exercise simulating mass casualty event with active shooter. The candidates had to secure the area, treat wounded, and maintain perimeter simultaneously. Webb led his team with calm precision, directing fire, coordinating medical response, making triage decisions under pressure. Everything Lena had hoped to create. When the exercise ended, she pulled him aside. That was textbook, better than textbook. Learn from the best, Webb said, then paused. I understand now what you carry, the weight of making those calls, choosing who lives, who fights, who waits. And it's worth it, to have the skills to make the difference. He looked at her seriously. Thank you for showing us how. That night, Lena called General Cross with her first progress report. Candidates are exceeding expectations. We'll have at least 12 graduates from the first class. Maybe 13. That's excellent. And your assessment of program viability? It works. The concept is sound. With proper support and continued development, this could become standard across Special Operations Medical. Music to my ears. Cross paused. How are you holding up? This is a lot of pressure. I'm managing. Having Merrick as assistant director helps, and the candidates motivate me. They're good people trying to do something hard. Like their instructor. I suppose. Lena, Cross's voice softened. You've built something remarkable here. Something that honors your skills while serving a greater purpose. Your team from Damascus would be proud. The words hit harder than expected. Thank you, sir. After the call, Lena sat in her darkening office and pulled up the photograph of her old team on her phone. I'm trying, she told them, to make what you taught me matter, to use these skills the right way. For the first time, she could almost imagine they approved. Graduation day arrived with crisp morning air and nervous energy. 13 candidates stood in formation, 12 who'd completed the full program, plus one alternate who'd fought through injury to finish. All had passed medical certification, tactical evaluation, and psychological screening. They were ready. General Cross presided over the ceremony. Colonel Marks presented certifications. Dr. Kwan provided medical credentials. And Lena addressed them one final time. You came here as medics, corpsmen, and specialists. You're leaving as tactical medical response operators, the first of your kind. You'll deploy to the hardest environments, face the most difficult situations, and make the choices no one else can make. She looked at each face. You'll save lives. You'll take lives when necessary, and you'll carry the weight of both. That's what we trained you for. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. I won't lie. This path is hard. Some nights you'll question every decision. Some days you'll wonder if the cost is worth it. But remember this. You have the skills to make a difference when it matters most, to be present when others can't, to save people who would otherwise die. Her voice strengthened. That's not just a job. That's a calling. Honor it. The graduate stood taller, and Lena felt pride she hadn't experienced since Damascus. After the ceremony, Hayes found her. You did good, Director. They did good. I just pointed them in the right direction. Don't downplay it. You created something from nothing, turned your trauma and skills into a program that'll save thousands of lives. He smiled. That's redemption, Vance. Maybe. Or maybe it's just forward motion. Same thing sometimes. Webb approached with his new certification, grinning. Got my first assignment, deploying to a forward medical station in hostile territory. Exactly what we trained for. Stay sharp, stay alive. Always. He hesitated, then extended his hand. Thank you. For everything. For saving my life, for training me, for showing me what's possible. She shook his hand. Make it count. I will. As the graduates dispersed to celebrate, Lena found herself alone in the training facility where it had all begun. Merrick appeared beside her, thinking deep thoughts. Just processing. 3 months ago, I was just trying to stay invisible. Now I'm running a program, training operators, getting recognized by Central Command. She trailed off. And I'm not sure I deserve it. Bullshit. Merrick's voice was firm. You earned this. Every piece of it. Damascus didn't disqualify you from doing good. It taught you what good costs. He gestured at the empty training space. Those 13 graduates, they're your legacy. Better than any body count, better than any classified mission. Real people doing real good because you showed them how. You helped. I assisted. You led. He paused. Stop waiting for permission to accept success, Lena. You've done the work, earned the respect, built something meaningful. Own it. That evening, Lena returned to her quarters and found a package waiting. Inside was a letter from Director Chen, handwritten. Vance, against my better judgment, you proved me wrong. The program works. The candidates are exceptional, and you've managed to integrate your past without becoming a security risk. I still think you're wasted in a training role. Your operational skills are legendary, but I respect your choice. Not many people get second chances. Fewer still make something worthwhile from them. Consider my oversight officially reduced. You've earned your freedom. Don't make me regret it. Chenlena read the letter twice, then filed it away. Freedom. The word felt foreign, but true. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photograph of her team one last time. I made it, she told them. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but I made it to somewhere worth being. She deleted the photo. Not out of disrespect, out of completion. She'd carried them long enough, honored them through action, transformed their loss into purpose. It was time to let them rest, and time to fully live. 6 months after program launch, Tactical Medical Response had expanded to 3 bases with 40 certified operators deployed worldwide. Success metrics exceeded projections. Lives saved, operations completed. The program was being studied for force-wide implementation. Lena received a promotion to captain, unexpected but deserved according to General Cross. She kept clinical hours, kept training, kept teaching. The work grounded her in ways nothing else could. One afternoon, she was in medical reviewing training reports when Dr. Kwan entered. Got a minute? Always. Kwan sat down, expression thoughtful. I've been thinking about when you first arrived. Quiet. Overqualified. Obviously carrying something heavy. I spent months trying to figure you out. And did you? No, because you weren't just one thing. You were both things, the operator and the healer, trying to choose between them. Kwan smiled. Watching you build this program, I realized something. You were never supposed to choose. You were supposed to integrate, become something new that honored both. Is there a point to this philosophical moment? Just wanted to say I'm proud of you, and I was wrong to push you to be only a medic. You're more valuable being completely yourself. Thank you, Sarah. It was the first time Lena had used her first name. Kwan noticed, smiled, and left without another word. That evening, Lena walked the perimeter of the base as the sun set over endless desert. This place had been her sanctuary and her trial. her hiding spot, and her transformation. She'd arrived as someone running from her past. She was leaving, eventually, when rotation orders came, as someone who'd integrated it. Hayes found her watching the sunset. Marks wants to extend your assignment another year. Apparently, Central Command insists you stay to oversee program expansion. What do you think? I think you've built something here worth staying for, but I also think you've proven what you needed to prove. He stood beside her. The question is, what do you want? Lena considered. I want to keep teaching, keep healing, keep making the contradictions work. Then stay. We'll make it happen. Even though I'm not the same quiet medic who arrived 3 months ago? Especially because you're not. Hayes smiled. We need people who understand complexity, who can hold multiple truths simultaneously, who can fight and heal and lead without losing themselves. That's a lot to ask. And yet you do it every day. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the desert paint itself in sunset colors. You know what I learned? Lena said eventually. The past doesn't define you, but it doesn't disappear either. You just learn to carry it differently, let it inform without controlling, remember without being trapped. That's wisdom. That's survival. Same thing sometimes. Lena smiled. You stole that from me. Learned from the best. 1 year after the program launch, Lena received a visitor she hadn't expected. A young woman in civilian clothes, mid-20s, nervous energy barely contained. Captain Vance, I'm Specialist Sarah Chen. No relation to Director Chen, thank everything. She laughed awkwardly. I'm a medic stationed in Germany. I heard about your program, read everything I could find, and She stopped, gathering courage. I want to apply. Why? Because I'm good at saving lives. But I've lost people because I couldn't protect them long enough to treat them. And I think if I had both skill sets, I could do more. She met Lena's eyes. Like you do. Lena saw herself in this young woman, the desire to be more, the fear of what that meant, the hope that it was possible. It's hard, Lena warned, harder than you think. You'll be pushed past your limits, forced to make choices that haunt you, and you'll carry the weight of every decision. But it's worth it? Lena thought about Blackthorn Valley, Grid Alpha 7, 13 graduates changing combat medicine, all the lives saved and yet to be saved. Yes, it's worth it. Then I'm in. Lena reviewed her file, saw the potential, and approved her application. Another candidate, another chance to transform trauma into purpose. The cycle continued, and that was exactly how it should be. 2 years after arriving at the base, Lena stood in the same briefing room where her identity had been exposed. General Cross was there, Colonel Marks, Director Chen, and a representative from the Joint Chiefs. Captain Vance, the representative began, we're here to discuss the future of tactical medical response. The program has exceeded all expectations. 47 certified operators, hundreds of lives saved, 3 successful high-risk extractions, congressional interest in formal authorization and expansion. That's good news, Lena said carefully. It is, which is why we want you to take it national, train instructors, develop standardized curriculum, establish the program across all service branches. The representative pulled out a document. We're offering you a promotion to major and assignment to Pentagon oversight for program expansion. Lena looked at the faces around the table. Cross was encouraging. Marks was proud. Chen was almost smiling. What about field training? Lena asked. Clinical work? The hands-on pieces? You'd oversee it all, but from strategic level. Your experience and insight are too valuable to keep localized. It was everything she should want. Recognition, authority, influence. But it meant leaving the work that grounded her. Can I have time to consider? Of course, we need an answer in 1 week. After they left, Lena sat alone in the briefing room processing. Dr. Martinez found her there an hour later. Heard about the offer. Big promotion. Big change. What are you going to do? I don't know. Lena looked at him. Part of me wants it. Chance to expand the program, help more people, create lasting change. But another part knows that if I take it, I lose the direct work, the teaching, the clinical practice, all the things that keep me balanced. So you're afraid of losing yourself again? Yes. Martinez sat down. Here's what I think. You've spent the past 2 years learning to integrate both sides of yourself, the warrior and the healer, the operator and the teacher. Taking this job doesn't mean abandoning one for the other. It means finding new ways to be both. At the Pentagon, running bureaucracy, creating policy that honors what you've learned, ensuring the program maintains integrity as it grows, protecting the next generation of operators from the mistakes that cost you your first team. He leaned forward. That's healing too, Lena, just at a different scale. She was quiet for a long time. What if I'm not ready? What if you are? 1 week later, Lena gave her answer. She accepted the position with conditions. She'd maintain clinical certification, visit field programs quarterly, and retain hands-on teaching responsibilities where possible. General Cross agreed to everything. The transition took 3 months. Merrick assumed full director role at the base program. Webb returned as an instructor after deployment. New candidates cycled in. The work continued without her, which meant she'd built something that could survive without her. That was success. On her last day at the base, Lena walked through the medical facility one final time. Dr. Kwan met her at the entrance. Going to miss having you around. Going to miss being around, Lena smiled. But this is the right move. I know. Doesn't make it easier. Kwan handed her a small box. Something to remember us by. Inside was a medical patch, the new tactical medical response insignia they'd designed. A caduceus wrapped around a tactical knife. Healing and protection integrated. Perfect, Lena said quietly. You created something special here, Lena. Don't forget that when you're stuck in Pentagon meetings. I won't. Hayes and the team threw her a going-away party that night. Informal, loud, full of the particular affection of people who'd been through hell together. Speech, Merrick called out. No speeches, just... Lena looked around at the faces. People who'd doubted her, then defended her, then become family. Thank you for seeing who I was and who I could be, for letting me figure out how to be both, for making this place a home when I didn't know I needed one. Damn right we did, Chen called out, already slightly drunk. Now go change the world or whatever. They raised their glasses, and Lena felt the weight of belonging settle into her bones. This was worth all the struggle, all the exposure, all the fear, this moment of being fully seen and fully accepted. 3 years after Damascus, Lena Vance stood in her Pentagon office overlooking the Potomac River. Major Vance now, with responsibilities that would have terrified the person who'd first arrived at that desert base as a quiet medic seeking invisibility. But she wasn't that person anymore. She was someone who'd learned that hiding from yourself was just another form of dying. That integration required courage but delivered freedom. That the past could inform the future without imprisoning it. Her phone buzzed. Message from Webb, now senior instructor at the expanded program. New class starting today, 15 candidates. They're asking about the legend who started it all. What should I tell them? Lena smiled and typed back. Tell them the truth, that she was just someone who learned to be fully herself, and that they can too. She returned to her work, policy recommendations, program assessments, strategic planning for nationwide expansion. The work of transformation continued, not just of combat medicine, but of herself. Every day, she chose both sides, honored both identities, remained both ghost and healer. And in that choice, she'd found something Damascus had stolen and the desert had returned. Purpose. Not redemption. She'd learned that concept was overrated. Just purpose. Clear and true and completely her own. Outside her window, the river flowed endlessly toward the sea, carrying its water forward without forgetting where it had been. Lena understood that now. You could move forward while honoring the past. You could change without erasing who you'd been. You could be multiple things simultaneously and call it wholeness instead of contradiction. That was the real lesson. Not that ghosts could become human, but that humans could be ghosts and healers and warriors and teachers and leaders, all at once, all the time, without apology. She picked up her next file and continued the work. Somewhere in a desert training facility, new candidates were learning to integrate the same contradictions she'd once thought impossible. Somewhere in forward operating bases, tactical medical operators were saving lives using the skills she'd taught them. Somewhere in classified briefings, her program was being cited as revolutionary. And somewhere in her heart, 3 faces from Damascus smiled their approval. Not because she'd avenged them, but because she'd honored them by living fully, completely, and without regret. That was the victory. That was the breakthrough. That was enough. Lena Vance, medic, ghost, warrior, teacher, leader, and finally, fully herself, got back to work. The past was settled. The present was clear. And the future belonged to everyone brave enough to be everything they were meant to be. Without apology, without hesitation, without limits except the ones they chose for themselves. The quietest person in the room might be the one holding everything together. Never judge someone by their role or appearance, because hidden strength reveals itself exactly when it matters most.